So, good morning and welcome to Competing for People, Strategies to Win the War for Talent. My name is Ed Crow. You'll be hearing from my associate, Paul Newton, here shortly. I want to thank especially the folks from Net at Work for being one of our presenting sponsors today. You're going to hear from them a little bit later in the presentation about the cool things they're doing and how they can help you with some of the very things that we're going to talk about today. Right now, all of you are muted. To unmute and participate, just hit your space bar and chime in. When I am on screen, Paul will be monitoring the chat room, so you can engage with us through the chat room. When Paul's on, I'll be monitoring the chat room. So there's gonna be plenty of ways for you to remain involved. We know this is it's going to be a long morning in here playing around in this virtual world. So we have a lot of activities planned for you. We want you to participate and take part in the discussion. It's going to make for an awesome learning experience this morning. I'm going to turn the screen over to Paul, let him introduce himself, and then we'll hop right in and get rolling.
Thank you, Ed, and good morning, everyone. It's a real honor to be here and having the ability to share with you. What we'll be doing today is delving right into the experience that the candidates, the people that are actually seeking positions, roles at your company possibly, we want to look at the experiences that they're having and how it is to be on the other side of the recruiting chair or table or whatever, and see how people perceive what your company is doing. So I'll be walking you through exercises. My background is actually as a chiropractor, so I was always getting into people's experiences of stress and of their bodies and of how work was affecting them. And now, having stepped away from that field and working with people that are out in corporate and the job market, I see their experiences from a whole other side. And I write the stories of how they perceive their experiences at your company, and we work on the employment brand story. So that's what you'll be hearing about me that's what you'll be hearing from me about. And I'm going to hand it back over to Ed.
All right.
Get more coffee and find my tongue.
So when we think about this war for talent and becoming a top talent magnet, you've probably heard those terms over the last couple of years. And, you know, up until maybe 5 years ago, I always thought that that whole idea of the war for talent was kind of a cliche, really. And now when we look at the environment we're in, it's so true, right? I mean, we are literally fighting to get people in the door. And so the question is, and please throw this in the chat or feel free to unmute. When you think about winning a war, what is it that you need to have to win a war? So again, either unmute and pop in or pop into the chat room and Paul will let me know what we're seeing out there. What do you need to win the war, or any war for that matter? We'll keep it generic right now. This is where we have fun interacting.
Resources, says Jason.
Okay. Jason says resources. Jason, can you be more specific? What kind of resources? While Jason's responding, I will say that one resource that I believe you need is some level of people, right? You need troops in order to win a war. And so we're here talking about how to get those troops. So it would seem kind of a challenge, like how do we win a war with troops when we don't have the troops? But we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah, Sharon says strategy and intel on the opposition.
Strategy and intel on the opposition. Sharon, gold star already this morning. Yes, absolutely. We're going to talk about strategies today. How do we build strategies around our recruitment process and our people in order to win this war? I think about, when I think about resources, I think about you need weaponry, right? Well, what are our weapons when it comes to our people? It's how we pay them, how we treat them, the work environment that we provide for them, the types of supervision and how our management team handles our people. That's weaponry that we can use to win this war on talent. When I think about, to Jason's point, when I think about resources, I think about money. We're going to take money to win this war. Absolutely. I see that. I see a P. Adams trying to ring in. Do you have something you'd like to say? Okay. And so when I think about the financial resources, it doesn't mean we have to have deep pockets, but we have to think about what we're using our money for. And so that'll be one of our underlying themes today too, is where are we spending our money, both on the recruiting process, but also on our people? And are we spending it in the right areas, the areas that are going to have the most impact for us? So I want you to think about those types of things in terms of winning this war for talent, because the outcome of winning the war is that you become a top talent magnet. People start coming to you rather than you having to hunt them down. So here's where we're going to hop right in. We can get the PowerPoint rolling. There we go. So a couple of things, I always like to start off with this idea of, why should you pay attention? We've got 4 hours together. What's in it for you? Well, how many of you, and again, if you'd like to ring in the chat, how many of you feel that your open positions right now are staying open way too long? Whatever too long means to you, how many of you would say that your positions are staying open too long? And again, you can feel free to unmute as well. Okay, we don't have anything coming in yet. So I gave a talk yesterday on this and people said, well, yeah, we used to be able to fill a position within a month. Now it's taking 2 months. It's taking 3 months in order for us to fill a position. And my question was, well, okay, how is that hurting you? And the obvious questions came, well, we can't serve, the obvious responses were, we can't serve our customers well. We can't deliver on our products. We can't meet shipping dates, those kinds of things.
Gina says it's taking months. Okay,
so Gina says it's taking months for them to fill positions. I'm willing to bet there are others of you that are feeling the exact same way. We see a couple more popping in there.
P. Adams, longer than usual. And Steve says some of our positions are staying open too long.
Yeah, so Steve and P. Adams both saying taking way too long. And again, if we've got the things that we're going to talk about today, we got the right strategy, we got the right resources, we got the right people, these types of things will start to reduce the time that it takes for us to recruit and fill those open positions.
Gina's saying it hurts our people because they feel overloaded.
Ah, that's interesting. Gina, I'm going to turn the presentation over to you at some point this morning, because we actually have a slide that talks about the fact that this shortage of our own staff is causing stress on our people. And again, it makes sense, right? If you've got a team of 5 and they're doing the work of a team that's supposed to be 7 or 8, made up of 7 or 8, we're overstressing them with overtime, work demands, or longer work weeks. So to that point, it's a great segue. Maybe you're finding that this shortage of people is actually causing you problems with your cross-training programs. I was at an event a couple months back and was talking with a business executive who was complaining about the fact that he's supposed to have a team of 10 and he only has a team of 7. And he's been trying to work with his HR staff to fill out the rest of his team. And HR was explaining to him the current state of the economy, of course, and the current state of recruiting. And they said, well, why don't you cross-train and that'll take some of the stress off? And he said, well, how am I supposed to cross-train when I got 7 people doing the work of 10? It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, we got Rita Wilson says it takes a long time due to specialized roles, and it is putting additional pressure on existing employees.
So yeah, Rita's saying with some of their specialized roles that they have, it's harder to recruit, and I would agree. So it's putting the stress on these other employees because now they're having to pick up the slack. And that's exactly what this executive was complaining to me about, that he couldn't cross train because his people were already overloaded and HR wasn't helping him. Now, I realize a bunch of you on this call are HR people. I'm not going to be slamming you. I'm an HR guy myself. But what we're going to see as a theme here today is that we do need to change our thinking and our approach in today's marketplace. And the reality is, when I say today's marketplace, it's also the marketplace of the future. What we're seeing right now with this labor shortage, it's not going away anytime soon. It's not going away when the pandemic's over. It's not going away when the Great Resignation stops. And it's not going away when, if we're in a recession, when that's done. The numbers tell us there just aren't enough people to go around. And that's why winning this war is going to be a lot harder than it ever was in the past. I know in my home county in Pennsylvania, there has been a lot of headlines saying that my county is at full employment, which basically means if you want a job and you are employable, you're working, and yet we are still 20,000 jobs short. That's a crazy number. And probably if you're able to look at those stats for your hometowns or your home states, you're going to see something very, very similar. And so there just aren't enough people to go around, which makes it even more imperative that we stay focused to become the place that people want to go to work. Finally, this session's for you. If you know the talent you want, in other words, you've got that avatar in place and you know what you're looking for and you just can't find it. And I know some of you are thinking, well, gosh, Ed, we'll just take a warm body in the door. Okay. That's not what I'm talking about. I get that sometimes we're taking whatever we can to keep the business moving forward. But I want you to think really hard about what's that avatar? What's the talent that you really need, not just today, but several years down the road to keep your company successful? Those are the kinds of things we're going to talk about today as we look at strategies. Okay. So here's what we're going to discover 4 things together in the course of the next 4 hours. This is the biggest one, I believe. Number one, why today's talent is expecting something different than in the past, but more importantly, they're expecting things before they ever even apply. So it used to be that, if I was looking for a job and I sent you my resume, I would use the interview process as a way to see if you can meet my expectations. Today, that's too late in the process. And people say, well, gosh, Ed, how do we meet someone's expectations before we ever met them? Stay tuned. We're going to talk about that today. Okay. And so things have changed. And I don't want you to look at this bullet point and say, oh, it's these doggone millennials. Oh, it's this doggone Gen Z coming out of college. No, we're seeing it across generations. What people are expecting to feel and experience before they ever apply for a job doesn't seem to be isolated to a given generation. It's where today's workforce is. Next thing that we're going to work on this morning is how you have to reposition yourself as an HR person, or reposition perhaps the entire HR function if you want to recruit the talent that you need. I can't stress enough that the old way of doing things is not going to work. So I'm not going to ask for a response on this one because we don't want to incriminate the guilty. But how many of you are still stuck in this scenario? You have an opening, and all of you indicate you have openings. And so you put the ad out on Indeed, you throw the job listing on your website, and then you sit there and you watch your email box. Now, a few years ago, your email box would blow up. You'd post an ad and you'd get 100 resumes. Now, maybe they weren't all qualified, but you didn't even have time to sort through everything. Today, some of you are probably sitting there and there's cobwebs forming on your desktop because you're waiting on people to come in. That's part of the fundamental shift. We can no longer throw bait in the water and just hope that the fish are going to find the bait. That old school recruiting does not work in today's environment. And I believe that old school way of recruiting is not going to work in the foreseeable future. And that goes back to the expectations that we mentioned here in number one. So we're going to spend a lot of time on number two today. How do we need to change how we recruit? It's going to be a fundamental change in our processes as HR professionals in making sure that we're doing the things that lead us, or excuse me, lead people to us rather than us going blind fishing out at the lake. Now, this is a fun one. This is one of the areas that Paul's really going to jump in because he's just a marketing genius. And it used to be, we would go to HR conferences and hear, oh, HR and finance, you guys got to buddy up and you got to know the numbers. And I agree, we do. But in today's marketplace, HR people, you need to buddy up to your marketing team. We're going to talk about this concept called an employment brand. All of your organizations have a brand already. Your product, your service, whatever it is that you do, you market that to your particular customers and your prospective customers to draw them to do business with you. The employment brand is very similar. It's what you have to offer as an employer and what you use to market to draw employees and potential employees to you. Marketing knows how to do this. So as HR folks, forget reinventing the wheel. I'm going to suggest, and Paul will talk about the marketing tactics we have to use, but these are things that our marketing team has been using for years. And so one of our pieces of homework for you is going to be go buddy up with marketing. Take them out to coffee, learn their tricks of the trade that you can apply to marketing for employees. And finally, I believe in actionable steps. You're going to spend 4 hours with us. That's a big chunk of your day. We want you to walk away with some strategy you can begin doing tomorrow in order to change things the way you need to change them for your situation to become a top talent magnet. So there are going to be a lot of actionable strategies in this session. You're going to get all of these slides at the end of the session today. So don't worry about frantically scribbling away, trying to keep up with things. We're going to see that you get all this content. So let's hop in here. So what does an effective recruiting strategy look like? Well, the first thing is kind of the obvious one. Are you pulling it in from a lot of different sources? And some people will say to me, well, yeah, we post on Indeed, and Indeed pushes that out to 100 other websites. That's a diverse set of sources. No, to me, that's one. It's the internet, okay? And specifically, it's job boards. That's one source. Yeah, there might be hundreds of job boards, but it's still one source. So to be truly effective, we've got to ask ourselves, how else and where else are we advertising our jobs? Are we using social media? And if so, how? We're going to take a deep dive into that today. Are we using word of mouth? Are we using employees to help sell our open positions? I mean, these are just a few of the things, and you guys know this. I'm kind of preaching at the choir here, but we really do have to take a hard look at the diversity of the sources that we're using and not hanging our hat on one source. And again, I'm going to use a fishing analogy because essentially that's what looking for employees is. We're rowing our boat out, we're throwing some bait in the water, and we're trying to attract fish to us, right? I mean, if you keep going to the same lake and you need to provide a meal for your family, and day after day you go fishing in that lake and you're not catching anything, your family starts to go hungry. And only a fool would continue to go to the same lake and throw the same bait in to not catch anything. And so what we want to do is say, okay, well, maybe we got to change the bait up. Maybe we got to go fishing at a different time of day. Maybe we got to go fishing in a different lake. Okay. Those are things we're going to talk about today. How do we change those things up? How do we analyze what we're doing to make it different? What we want to do ultimately is not just fill positions. So often we get stuck on, yeah, my positions are staying open too long. What I like to worry about is, what are the critical skill shortages that we have? Forget just the number of people we're short. Have you looked at the critical skills you need to provide your goods and services to your customers? And how do we market for those skill sets? Paul's going to take you through a really cool exercise today on kind of the old way of advertising and the new way. I guarantee if you're not sitting there with your mouth like wide open going, holy cow, this is amazing, something's wrong, because every time he presents it, I sit there and go, this is flipping amazing, right? And so we want to focus not just on getting bodies in the door, but skills in the door. I said we're going to talk about an employment brand. We're going to talk about how your recruitment strategy feeds into that and can strengthen your employment brand. And first, obviously, we're going to have to talk about the employment brand, and then we'll come back around and Paul's going to talk about how the recruitment piece can strengthen that. But it's critical. It's not just your employment brand is not just about what your people think about you as a place to work, but it's where potential candidates and their perceptions of you feel whether you're a good place to work. And finally, we're going to look at engagement, but we're going to take engagement and put it on steroids and talk about creating a workplace that drives an employee experience. Engagement, we've heard so much about it, and it's important. But again, it's one little piece of the employee experience. And most businesses today, when I talk to them about their employee experience, they're like, oh, you mean engagement? No, I don't. I mean an experience. What is it like to work at your organization? Are you driving people to have a true experience that helps them be who they are, that helps them bring their full self to work every day, that helps them stay engaged and committed to your mission? And again, we're going to work through some exercises to help you with that today. So here's some ideas around the new recruiting framework. And this is where we're going to hit the road running now. So when we think about those critical skill shortages, what we realize is that the complexity of what we're trying to do today causes us to have to be more strategic. And I get disappointed when I talk to organizations and they're still stuck in that post and hope mentality. To me, if we're going to truly recruit talent, not bodies, but talent, then we have to have a plan for doing that. And that plan has to go beyond, yep, I'm going to post this on Indeed for $100 a week. Okay, that's not really a plan, because what happens when that doesn't work? What happens when it's working in terms of drawing candidates in, but they're not the right people? So today's workforce is more complex than ever in terms of what they're looking for, in terms of the work itself, the work-life fit, the experience that we're going to talk so much about. And yes, the pandemic really accelerated this shift. But if you think about it, think about, say, the veteran generation. They came back from the wars. Many of them grew up in the Depression. They worked to put food on the table. It was really a life-sustaining thing. They worked. They didn't complain about it. They worked. Then the boomers came along and said, you know, America's thriving. We're not in wars. We want to work to maintain and enhance our lifestyle. We want the toys, the McMansions and the fancy cars and the trips to Europe. We want these things. And then the Gen Xers, we came along, and it's been followed with the millennials and now Gen Z. And they're saying, okay, yeah, we got to work to live, but that's, you know, working for survival just isn't a thing for most of us. We have the creature comforts now. So we want something more. If you go back to your high school psychology class and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're getting up further up the pyramid, right? People want more out of their work experience today than ever before. It's not just about the paycheck. It's not just about the people they're working with. It's not just about the company's goods and services. It's a mix of all of those things and more, as you'll see. Social media, totally revising our playbook here. And if we're not using social media as a way to drive candidates, we're missing a big chunk of the pie. And again, Paul's going to hop in on this one and talk about how we use social media. And when I say this, if you get on LinkedIn on any given day, you'll see people say, hey, I'm hiring, with a little link, and you click on it and there's their job ad. That is not using social media as a way to source candidates. It's just another posting. Paul's going to walk you through how you have to drive an experience for people, again, before they'll ever even consider working for you, and how you can use social media to do that. And so your brand messaging, and when I say this, I mean your employment brand messaging, has to look at this multi-generational workforce, just like your marketing brand does. You probably have a target market, and maybe it's people aged 30 to 50. Okay, great. So your marketing team develops a message that's going to resonate with those people, and then they target the market where those 30 to 50-year-olds are playing. We've got to think about the same thing when it comes to our employment brand messaging. Who are we looking for? If they're across the generations, then we're probably going to need to find different messages in different places to help pull those people to us. And again, that's going to be an actionable item we're going to take a look at today. And finally, we're going to take a look at processes. Processes get in the way of things. Do we need them? Yep, we got to have them. Absolutely got to have processes. But the problem with processes is sometimes they cause us to lose out on prospective talent. So I was giving a talk very similar to this one yesterday to a group of association executives in Texas. And one of the ladies said, Ed, recently I was in the job market. And one place said, hey, we'd love to talk to you. We're going to send you a packet of information we'd like you to fill out. It was 8 pages long. And I'm not talking about all the required forms like checking off your gender and race and all that stuff. It was like questions that she had to write out and answer and send back to them. It was almost like a pre-interview. 8 pages worth. Do you think she sent that back? Nope. No, that's a process that they think they're trying to save time by screening candidates out. And they are, because candidates aren't going to do that today. They're just simply not going to take that much time up front unless you have previously engaged them and they already feel some kind of affinity for your organization. They're simply not going to take that much time if they don't already feel some connection to you. That process is killing that organization. And I'll have more examples, as will Paul, throughout the morning about how processes, while important, have to be evaluated to make sure they're driving value when it comes to our recruiting. So here, and again, I don't want you to throw this into the chat, but I want you to think about these couple questions I'm gonna post as homework. And I also believe that these questions are great questions for your leadership team or your next department meeting. Where are you hurting for talent the most? And everywhere is not the answer, okay? When I think about this question, I think about where are the skill sets that we're missing? Where are they hurting? The fact that we don't have these skills, where are they hurting us? The second thing is, what are we doing to look at the talent we're going to need 5 years from now? Do we know what that is? Your business is going to look very different in 5 years. I guarantee you it looks different than it did 5 years ago today. So it's probably going to change again. Have you identified the skill sets you're going to need in 5 years so that you can begin recruiting for that now? I guarantee your executive team knows where the business is going. You probably have a strategic plan that's outlining how you're going to get there. And obviously people are a monster part of making that plan effective. And the final question I think you should be asking is your people strategy paired up with your business strategy? I read through business plans all the time with my clients, and I read through their strategic plans. And there's always the lofty goals in there about we're going to expand market share, and we're going to get into a new marketplace, and we're going to develop these new products and these great services. All of it's great, right? But who ensures that all that stuff gets done? The people. And I look through it, I'm like, okay, so where's the people strategy in all this? And I usually get the blank stare. Like, how can you have a business strategy without having a strategy around how you are going to use your people to achieve that business strategy? If you do not have a people strategy, not just a recruiting strategy, but a true people strategy, and we'll look at that as part of your employment brand, you are doomed to fail, because talent acquisition and retention is a strategic activity that needs to be measured and needs to be part of our business discussion every single day. How prepared are you to manage the needs of today's diverse workforce? And when I say diverse, I mean it in every sense of the word, right? It's not just about race and gender. It's how everyone is bringing themselves to work today. The expectations are very different. And you might say, well, we've got a great DEI program. Okay, good. But are you really prepared to manage the needs of those people and what people want today? Can they bring their full selves to work? Coming out of the pandemic, I was working with an insurance company that was struggling to get the people back in the office, and culture was kind of just not as good as it was before. And we were running some focus groups, and one of the gentlemen from one of their remote offices was African-American. He said, Ed, one of my challenges with this organization is there was no communication out when the George Floyd situation was exploding. And he said, I didn't need them to condemn the police. I didn't need them to make him the hero. I didn't need any of that. I just wanted to see that, hey, this is a discussion we want to have in our workplace. He said, I felt very isolated. And I shared that with the management team, because this guy was a valued member of the team, basically running one of their other offices. And he didn't feel like he could bring him full self to work. He didn't feel like he could talk about this tragedy in our society and how it was impacting him as a person. What challenges are you already having with trying to attract a diverse workforce? And again, use the term diversity in any way that you see fit to use it. I just think about a diversity of talent. Forget what people look like and all the ways we want to sort and classify people from a diversity perspective. I just think about a diverse workforce being a group of people who has thoughts different than other people, so that when they all come together, they can bounce ideas, and that diversity of thought really drives our processes, drives our business, and drives results. How prepared are you to really reinvigorate your recruiting process? Are you able at this point to say, yeah, the old way is not working, we've got to change it? And what does that look like? And finally, what is your employment brand? Some of these 6 and 7, we're going to answer today. We're going to take care of that for you. So let's talk about employment brand for a moment. I've been using that term now for the past few minutes. If you take a look at the 8 gold balls here, these are all the things that make up your employment brand. Now, there is no magic sauce to these 8 things. There's no magic recipe. There's only the recipe that works for the people that you are trying to attract. So we know right now salaries are going through the roof. And that's why I just put good salary in here, a fair salary. That's part of your employment brand. When you look at all of these other things, though, what are you offering people with your working conditions? Are you recognizing your people? What about like the job security? How do they feel about when they show up for work? Do they feel like you're always on the brink of going out of business, or they're on the brink of losing their job, something along those lines? Ultimately, what we're talking about is your reputation as a place to work. 2 years ago, I was working with a credit union, and they were going through some pretty serious legal issues, actually. They had to oust their CEO and their chief lending officer for writing some really sketchy loans. And so they were elevating people, moving people around, and trying to clean house. And the board of directors brought me in to help take a look at what was going on from a cultural standpoint there. And so I was interviewing each of the key management team members and just getting to know them and get a vibe for the organization. And when I was talking with the CFO, so in their structure, the CFO was the right-hand person to the CEO. So number 2 in the credit union. And I said, okay, let's say you and I just met and we're at a cocktail party and I asked you what you do, what would you say? She says, well, I would tell you I'm a financial executive and I work in a financial services industry. I said, okay. And then my follow-up question would be to you, okay, where do you work? She says, oh, I would never tell you that. I said, from like a confidentiality standpoint, she goes, no, I would just never tell you I worked here. And I didn't know what to say. Sitting across the desk from the number 2 person in the credit union, and she, if we were at a cocktail party, would refuse to tell me where she worked. That's a problem, right? How many people in your organization are that disconnected that they would be afraid to tell someone they worked for you? Guarantee, no matter how good you are, you've got a few of those folks, okay? And rather than push them into the corner, we need to embrace them and figure out what's going on. What do we need to fix? Because they're impacting your employment brand. And here's the thing with your employment brand. You can only have a crappy employment brand for so long before it starts to impact your marketing brand. I had worked with a large medical group, and the CEO had heard me speak and came up to me after a session and said, hey, Ed, we got to talk, man. I really liked what you had to say. He said, I'm getting charged with growing this practice. He wasn't a doc, but the docs who were the owners of the practice had hired him to help them grow the practice. And one of those things included opening another campus across town. And he said, and here's the thing for those of you that are in HR, this is his exact words to me. He said, I believe HR, my HR team is actively inhibiting my ability to grow this practice. And my mouth sort of dropped open at that point. I mean, those are fighting words, right? He had drawn the line in the sand with HR saying, basically, you guys are keeping me from hitting my goals. And if I don't hit the goals, the docs are going to have my head. I'm going to be out of a job and I'm not having it. So he brought me in and we started looking at some of their cultural challenges. And as part of that, I was interviewing employees and I heard from multiple employees, yeah, the pay is really good here. That's why I stay. But I don't tell any of my nurse friends to come work here. I tell them to go over to the hospital and work because it's a better work environment over there. They're not going to make as much money as here, but it's a better work environment over there. Wow, right? When your own people won't tell their friends to come work for you, that's a major problem. And fortunately, these docs and this CEO recognize the fact that if they don't fix that, their marketing brand is going to suffer. These docs are the best orthopedic surgeons in their marketplace, hands down. You break a bone, blow out a knee, you're going to these docs. They're the best. But they recognized if they don't fix that employment brand, after a while, it's going to impact their marketing brand and their service. And there's the business imperative for what we're talking about today. So we've been talking about this idea of driving experience for people. And we want to jump into that now. Take a look at these pictures on the screen. They look like a feed from someone's, could be YouTube, still shots, could be Facebook, could be Snapchat, whatever, okay? But notice these people are all in some type of an experience situation. They're sharing, hey, look at the ice cream I'm having. Look at the paintball race I just finished, or look at the mountains I'm climbing, right? Hey, look at the new puppy I just rescued. They're sharing their experiences. And you think, well, yeah, that's cute. That's what Facebook's for, okay? We want to use this same idea of experience and how people want to experience life in our recruiting. What is it like to experience your workplace? Paul's going to talk about a client we recently worked with where we totally revamped how they present themselves in the marketplace. And it's an amazing transition that this client has gone under. It can be done. I was working with speaking to a group a couple months back of performance racing industry specialists. So these are people working on the Indy cars and the Daytona cars and NASCARs, and, they hire a lot of mechanics. So these guys are at the top of their game. How cool is it that they get to work on these cars and they're in a pit crew in the heat of the moment? And I said, guys, you really can share a huge amount of experience. Get some video of your guys working in the pit crew or getting that car ready for the big race and use that as part of your social media outreach. And Paul's going to dive into the power of doing those kinds of things to drive that connection before someone would ever apply to work with you. Because this whole idea of the experience age that we're going to focus on for the rest of this session today really is being driven by the change in online shopping. Think about, how you use your phones today and how your phone has become the window to your world, right? It can do anything we need it to do. More technology in our cell phones today than was in the Apollo spacecraft that landed man on the moon 40 or 50 years ago now, right? And so how we've changed in our demands and our need for service have changed as a society. And we're seeing that fall over into how people want to be served in the workplace, how they want to be served as candidates for recruitment and in the recruitment process. So the lines are now getting blurred between our expectations as consumers of goods and services and our expectation as consumers of the employment experience. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul now to start talking about some of these marketing tactics and what we need to do on that front to become marketing professionals in order to draw in the talent that we need. Paul, take it away.
Thanks, Ed. I'm just going to put my chiropractor hat on for a second here. And I know we've been sitting at our computers now for 47 minutes or so. So stand up, please. Just get out of your chair and just reach up to the ceiling and stretch a little, because sitting at your computer is actually a health hazard. Get your neck, reach it over your ear to your left shoulder, and then right ear to right shoulder, and roll your shoulders back. And I want you to really understand that this is a workshop. So I want you to participate, get involved here. So I want to start seeing some stuff in the chat. Ed is going to interact with you. I am going to get you to do some things so you can experience this workshop like our people are, that the people that we're looking for out there are looking to experience things. Because this experience age Ed's talking about, the age we've moved into, most people didn't even know it came or that it even happened, right? We hear all about the information age, and everything's at our fingertips, right on our laptops, our computers, our phones, and it's just all about information flowing, right? There's nothing out there that everybody on the planet can't access. So what makes us different? It's not the information we have. It's not what we know. It's not what we've got on our websites. It's how is it consumed? How is it experienced? And what is the feeling that is evoked as the candidates that come and check you out are consuming that information? Because everybody can have all the information in the world right now at their fingertips. Even somebody in the middle of sub-Saharan Africa with a burner little phone has more information than President Clinton had back in the 90s. It's right here in our hands. So we've crossed over into a new age of how everything works. This is not the same world at all. And nothing is ever going to be the same. We're on the hockey stick up, and it's just going to keep changing at the speed of light, and we're never looking back. So we need to look at how do we get these people out here that are totally ADD. There's information coming at them every which way, and they're just looking for something to grab onto. How do we get them to pay attention to us? And why should they work for our company? And that's why we're talking about marketing now, which is a new thing for HR and a new thing for recruiting. We have to reach out to those people out there and grab their attention and convince them to come to us. So that's what my section here is about. We need to go where they are, and we need to put things in front of them that get their attention. So the candidate experience, what is it? Is your candidate experience concise? Because I told you, everyone out there now is just attention deficit. There's so much going on all around us. It's our own faults because we have just been saturating the marketplace with all these messages. Everyone's trying to get your attention, and we have attention spans that are just seconds long. So if your job postings are out there and they have big long titles, or you're trying to be creative, that's just going to work against you. You need something that's short, 3 words tops, and it gets right to the point and says, what is this? Is it a senior engineering position in wastewater? And it needs to tell the person, okay, this is why you're here. So if you have 3 words or less, they found that it doubles the application rate. And people are putting out these really long creative titles, but that doesn't work in your favor. Secondly, there's so little trust out there right now. People are, they're always skeptical. They're always questioning because we've been burned, and the internet's been around long enough that like there's all sorts of scams. There's all sorts of things that are going on out there, and it doesn't pass the sniff test. So when people come to check you out, they want to know, is this a trustworthy place? Is this somewhere that is walking their talk? Are the people that work here really having the experience, or is it just management saying this and just wanting to paint a picture that once I get in the door, it's going to be totally different? So they're looking to see if you are actually telling them the truth. And that's how you have to get that across, is by being consistent. Everywhere that you post, the message has to be the same, and it has to align with your company story. If you even know what that story is, right? Like, what is your company all about? Because now more than ever, it is crucial that your company story is being reflected through everything that you put out, but also through every employee that works there. So when Ed says that, you know, you have that that healthcare company, and it provides top-notch healthcare, but the staff is walking away and saying, yeah, but it's just not the best place to work. It's not a healthy environment, and the staff's burning out and we hate it. Well, there's a big inconsistency there. And your staff, or your employees who are supposed to be bringing those core values and expressing them to the clients, to your consumers, if they're not doing that, then there's a big disconnect in that message getting out. And people are going to take one sniff and go, yeah, there's no way that I'm going to respond to this, because they're checking to see if there's truth to your core values. So consistency is key. And then finally, how are you engaging not just your employees, not just your customers, but how are you engaging the applicants, the candidates that are coming to your site, that are looking on Indeed and that are saying, there's a job in my field, it's in this company, it's in the geographic area I want to work, let's check them out. So then if they go and they start checking out and they read the job description and it says, yeah, well, we're this company and we've been around for 50 years and we have like this much in sales, and we look after this market, and these are our clients, and this is what we want, and we need somebody to fill this role. I'm hearing a whole lot about this company, but I don't see myself in that company. I haven't heard anything about me, what I'm going to get out of coming into work for you, or why I should even care. And that's because we're using old world ways of putting out job description, old world ways of actually reaching the candidates. And it's not going to work, or not going to fly in this experience age, because the world has changed. We need to step into the new world and use a new approach to marketing. So the candidate experience in the experience age is key. So are your job postings mobile friendly? Because the laptop, the desktop, it's kind of becoming a thing of the past, isn't it? It's something that sits on your desk at work. But where's everybody else? They're right here, right? Everybody's on this all the time. And if they're looking at this smartphone all the time, and they're looking at these different platforms and things, are you there? Because that's where their attention is, right? The candidates have their attention on LinkedIn, maybe on Instagram, or whatever platforms that your candidates, the people that you want to reach, whatever they use, they should be your favorite platforms. You need to pay attention. And I don't care if you don't do Facebook or you don't do LinkedIn. If that's where the clients are, you've got to do it, right? If that's where the candidates are, you need to get your information out there. So 60% of job seekers quit in the middle of filling out an online job application because of the length or complexity. Now that's online. Ed's even talking about a company that sent out paper in the mail. Like, who does that, right? Who knows even, like, people don't know how to open envelopes and fill stuff out anymore. It's like a thing of the past, like the rotary phone, right? So you need to think, like, how do we make this an online, on my phone experience? Really critical here. And then 68% of millennial job seekers use their mobile device to seek jobs. Now, in the chat, right, let's just get a sense of this audience here, or who's here. How many of you identify as, say, boomers? Raise your hand or put boomer in the chat. How many of you are Gen Xers? So I would say like boomers born up to, like, say, what, 1965, Ed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Give or take. Yep.
1965. And then if you are born after 1965 to 1976,
Yeah.
okay, then you're Gen Xer. We could even push it to 1980 maybe.
Yeah.
And then after 1980, we're looking at the millennials. And then where's the Gen Z fit in? They're like 2000 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now it's about 2000.
All right.
Okay, so let's see what we got coming in here.
First of all, those millennials that were like, oh my God.
X. Go Xers. Yes.
Gen X.
4 Xers
all the
so
way.
far.
Yeah. Yeah. And then those millennials that were like, oh, you know what, their attitude, I just don't get them. Just think about the fact that they're turning 40, some of the older millennials right now. So
6 Xers.
6 Xers.
Yeah.
What else do we have in the mix?
So far, it's all Xers. Anyone in here not an Xer? Maybe that's easier. I mean, we're the cream in the Oreo, right? As Xers, we're that tiny little slip. Hey, Cassie is a Gen Z. Welcome to the
Gen
workforce,
Z.
Cassie. Hey, Caitlin is a millennial. Poor Caitlin, who's taken so much abuse, probably your entire professional life. Not for me. I love the millennials. Oh, yes. Sad face. I know, Caitlin.
Yeah.
But this has to be the first time I'm giddy that I've ever seen Gen X be the majority of the population in a seminar. This is awesome. But we're not going to lose you, Caitlin. We're going to include you. Don't worry.
I hope you could hear Ed through the sideways mic here, because we just got one laptop going here. But yeah, the Gen Xers, like, I guess we're that generation that we can have some boomer tendencies, or we can have some millennial or further on tendencies, because we kind of came into the job market when when computers, the internet, and all that started to come online. But honestly, I got through all my schooling without an email address and without even having my own computer, if you can even imagine that. But adapting to technology, we had to do it quick, right? Nowadays, we've got the millennials, they're on their smartphones, the Generation Z, they're always on here, and how they interact with these devices and how they utilize information, it's always changing. So we have to stay abreast of those things, right? And now we've got 61% of job applications that were completed in 2020. They were done on the mobile devices, compared to 39.3% that were probably completed by us Gen Xers or something like that, or the boomers in the room. So you need to be thinking how things show up on here, okay? So everything has to be mobile friendly. Here's the test, right? Now, this QR code here, I guess they've been around for quite a while. They didn't really get used that much until this pandemic thing, and nobody wanted to touch anything or have any paper, right? So they start seeing them on restaurant tables or whatever. Now, if you don't know how to use one, and sometimes it's a little tricky, so take out your smartphone right now. We're gonna have the smartphone experience, okay? We're gonna experience life like our candidates out there. And I want you to now get your camera and take the camera, focus on that QR code, and then touch the little thing to open the web browser. Now, as far as candidate experience goes, I'm getting a commercial right here, an ad that is pissing me off a little, right? Because I don't want to be distracted. So I'm skipping that advertisement. That's not a good candidate experience. So I apologize for that. But now you should be at a website that says, is your web page mobile friendly? What I want you to do is now on your phone, go to your website, your company website. All right. So get there. Once you get to the company website, I want you to find your careers page. So if there's anyone having any trouble with this or needs some tech support, we've got Ed here on tech support. Just shoot him a message and he will see what he can do. And we'll see how Ed is on tech support, right? So get that URL for your careers page and paste it into the enter URL to test, and then test the URL. And now I realize you didn't do your company website. You're not the web designer. You just use it and you just post on it. But do you actually go and check your careers page on your website? Because a lot of times we've presented and people haven't even looked there. And in fact, what happened to that company? Was it?
Yeah, I've got a client right now that is struggling, like most, to have a. I'll hop in so I can get in part of the screen here. They're struggling like most to find talent. And I'm doing currently some leadership development with their management team, but we're beginning to talk about their role in how they have to manage the employee experience. So one day I was nosing around on their website and they've got 4 divisions. So I went to one division and went to the job listings and they had 6 listings there. So I clicked on the first listing and I got the dreaded 404 error message. It's like, okay, well, that's not good. I went to the next listing, 404 error message, and the next, and the next, and the next. So I called the HR manager. I said, hey, how's the recruiting going for such and such division? She goes, Ed, it's so slow. I'm not getting the applicants in. I'm really not sure what's going on. I don't know what more to do. I said, well, when's the last time you got on your careers page? She says, oh, it's been a little while. I said, I think you might want to check it out. Well, she got in there and she flipped out, right? But that's a problem. Now, she didn't create that problem. But again, we talked in my opening remarks about processes. Whatever process was in place to ensure that the job listings were out there and actually open and active had fallen through. And I said, when was the last time you got an application? And she said, oh, like 3 weeks ago. So her sites had been down for almost 3 weeks. And that's aside from what Paul's walking you through here, which is the mobile friendly. So as you're doing this, please throw in the chat if you're getting any problems with your mobile site.
So I hope you're all doing great on this. And like I said, I realize you're not the web designer, but is your actual site mobile friendly? Can people navigate it well? Did the web crawler say that it was easy to navigate? What are we seeing? I hope it's all yes, but I know we've come across a lot that have said no, it wasn't.
Okay, so P. Adams, can you repeat the process for the mobile site?
Okay, so if you, P. Adams, I don't know what your actual first name is. Do you want to let us in on that little secret?
Maybe they're in the witness protection program.
Okay, well, we'll
Pam, there it is.
Pam, okay,
hey,
Pam. So your company website, go to the careers page and copy that URL.
Okay, so Gina says yes. It says page is usable on mobile.
Good.
So Gina, what you can also do is if you found one that works, like maybe you went onto your career page on your website, try if you've got, say, something on Indeed right now, go out and find that and plug that in. So everywhere that you may have something listed, go and try plugging that in and see if you're having any problems. My experience has been, especially if you're using a third party like ADP or something, we find that sometimes that's where the problems lie with these mobile.
This side, just in case the mic's directional.
Yeah. Hopefully you heard those comments, but if not, try going out to a few of your other sites, not just your your own homepage or your own website, but try going to your Indeed website or anywhere else you're posting. But also, if you're using a third-party applicant tracking system, sometimes that's where we see the most mobile-friendly problems. So don't just type in, think about every place you've got a listing and go out and plug that URL and see if you're getting any kickback on mobile issues.
All right. And now, Pam, I'm just going to address you here. So once you have the URL from where your job posting is hosted, take your smartphone and hold it up to the screen right now and open the camera. And on the camera, you're gonna focus on that QR code, and what you'll see is a little box will form around the QR code, and it'll have a little place you can tap. And when you tap on that, it should open up this website that asks you. It's the mobile friendly test. So just let me know if any of those steps were confusing, and then paste your URL of your job posting into that and run the test. So it's interesting, right? That these third-party sites that are specifically for—
Pam says perfect, so she's up and rolling.
Good job, Pam. And it's interesting that these third-party sites that are specifically for finding jobs, they cause problems with your mobile friendliness. And the other thing is, if it's on another site and it's not linked up properly, you can't get the analytics that could give you a lot of insight into who's applying for these jobs and tracking like the success rate, because those companies don't give you the analytics that we had our team looking for. And when I get into this specific example of the company that we helped change their approach to how they are marketing their jobs, well, they didn't have any data, and we could have used that data as a benchmark for how things are increasing and improving. Okay, so most people have been finding that there's some degree of mobile friendliness. And as Ed said, check all the different places that you have posted jobs. Okay, if it's not mobile friendly, you're missing out, because like I said, 60% of people, they're either abandoning processes that are too complicated. And I don't know about you, but I've been on websites and been interested in something and checking it out. And then once they start getting me to fill in too many things or take too many steps, I'm like, close browser, because this is a waste of time. You don't want that happening when you have a hungry candidate that you have been working hard to bait them to get to your company. You don't want them to get away, right? That fish that got away could have been the one that took your company to the next level.
I've often used the example too of you're looking for a restaurant and then you try and pull up the menu and you can't read the menu on your mobile device. You go on to something else.
Yeah, could be the best hidden gem in the city, and you're not going to discover it. So you really don't want to leave people guessing. Now, just getting them to your site to look at your job post, is that half the battle? Well, maybe not, right? Because what are you posting? Now, Ed talked about the old way of posting jobs, right? It's like ABC Co. is 100% employee owned and operated engineering firm, and it's offering competitive salaries, professional development, and comprehensive benefits packages. Well, if you're not offering those things, who's even going to look anyway, right? Everybody's offering that because you have to. You got to stay competitive with salaries, or people aren't going to even click, right? And we are seeking an energetic, goal-oriented civil engineer, project manager to support our municipal engineering team in Philadelphia, PA. So what, right? Why would I go work for ABC Co., nondescript, who knows if they're going to be in business next year company, versus this big, well-known nationwide firm? Why are we going to go to your company versus Google or Apple or Microsoft, or you fill in the big competitor in your field, whatever it is, right? People want track records. They want things that they can trust, things they know about. And if you don't give them a reason to consider your company, they're going to go with the trusted and true and what they've heard about, even though it might not be better, right? So if you are making the mistake of just putting up the old world job posting that's like, here's the list of skill sets that we need, and this is how much education you need, and we have like all the same old everybody else has, well, you're missing out. And here's what we did, right? This company, ABC Co, is actually an engineering firm that Ed's had a relationship with a number of years and has done work with them. And when he came to us and said, this company is so great and everybody that works there loves it there, they stay a really long time, they are doing all these great projects, and they're employee owned and operated, they compensate their employees well, they treat them well, and no one ever leaves. But they had these open positions and they couldn't fill them. Nobody would come because
what was the one, like 18 months, I think, open? It's crazy.
Yeah. How much does that hurt? Like, what projects did they not take on? I mean, 18 months, that's enough time to complete a project, like build a bridge or something like that. That bridge didn't get built by them. So that hurts, right? So we went in and we talked to this company, and my job is to interview and kind of do what I used to do when I was being the chiropractor and the doctor, is like, let's, what's the problem that you're having? Let's hear about it. And let's just find out what's kind of going on underneath, behind the scenes. And so I talked to the management, I talked to people that were working out in the field, and I just wanted to hear what they were saying. And management was all excited about all their core values. They're excited about, like, they were talking about a career well lived at this company, right? They wanted people to actually build a life and a career here, and all the things that we're looking for, right? As people that are millennial-esque, people with these behaviors that are like, I want my, not just work-life balance, I want my life to balance with my work. I want to have flexibility. I want to raise kids, have leisure time, and have work fit in there somehow and make a difference in my community and my world. Well, look at this quote here, Jay Hancock, Senior Project Manager. I talked to this guy, and he actually worked for this company, say 15, 20 years ago, when the actual founder of the company started it. And he's like, oh, he's such a great guy. He let me go out on my own. I told him, no, I wanted to do my own projects. So went started his own firm. And then he decided that ABC Co had cooler projects and they did things in a really great way. And so he came back, and he tells me, you know what? All these people are talking about the projects that could be happening, all these projects in sustainability that, we could do this someday or whatever. He says, we're not just talking about the projects, we're actually doing them. How cool is that? They're on the cutting edge, and the engineers are excited about the work that they're doing, but nobody knows, right? This is an opportunity. So in this job description, we have a testimonial from somebody that actually is in there and is excited about their work. And then look at how we've changed the tone and the voice of this message from all about me and blah, 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 and ABC Co to you as a senior project manager. You will lead the municipal wastewater team, providing your technical expertise and guidance. You will be the trusted advisor to our clients with the freedom to develop new business relationships and close new opportunities. We empower you. We're giving you all sorts of control over your role here. You will have the chance to grow your skill set and access exciting new projects while integrating with our municipal engineering team. How different is that description from the one that we saw on the previous page here with, we're offering competitive salaries and a professional development and comprehensive benefit package? That employee or the candidate can see themselves and go, do you know, I want to advance my career. I want to take more of a leadership role. I want to have relationships with clients, close business, and advise. I don't want to just have a role. So we've made it so that the candidate can see themselves in that position before they even get there and talk to you. Examples of projects: you'll be overseeing biosolids and renewable energy development. And so we say, with access to ongoing training and development, you will enjoy a fulfilling and dynamic career surrounded by a team where employee individuality is harnessed and integrated. Okay, so right there, I mean, it's not a lot of wording, but it just gives a lot more insight into the company. But is that enough? Well, there's more. And here we're talking about employee engagement is not employee experience. And I'm going to pass it back to you, Ed, to talk about, because they blend, right? The experience that the employee has in the company versus how it is perceived from outside the company. Those come together in the employment brand.
Thanks, Paul. So what I love about that last example that Paul ran you through, and it's an actual case study. I mean, it's a client that we recently wrapped up this entire process with. As I mentioned, they were trying to expand into a large market in Philadelphia, and they were going to be competing with these big boy engineering firms. And here's this tiny little regional firm. How are they going to do that? And they were able to position themselves, get that office open, and now they're competing for talent there in a much tighter labor market against the big boys of engineering, with all the fluff that those big engineering firms have to play with. And this little regional firm, the little engine that could, is climbing that hill, and they're doing it because they're telling their story, and they're telling it through the eyes of their people. One of the things that Paul helped them with is getting employees on video talking on their webpage about what their life is like there. Videos of their employees out in the field doing the work that they're doing while they're telling the story. And that is powerful collateral. And now they can use that not just on their website, but earlier we mentioned social media. I mean, obviously I follow all of my clients on social media, and I've seen a distinct shift in the frequency that they're posting and in the content that they're posting, because they're trying to draw in. Now, here's the real beauty of that. Anything you're doing, as Paul mentioned, can be tracked. You can track you can work with your webmaster to set up the appropriate analytics to see exactly how all of that stuff is working. Within 3 months after wrapping up our project, their engagement on social media was going through the roof, where before they really were like, oh, hey, we just started this new bridge over this river. Okay, great. Why should I care about that, right? But now you see people out there and talking about how they planned it and the unique challenges and whatever. That's where we talk about this idea of engaging talent before they ever apply for work. Because now people are saying, hey, that company's doing some pretty cool stuff. I wonder if they've got any employment opportunities. And now they're going to you. That's becoming a top talent magnet, when the people are coming to you, checking you out. So we've been using this concept of the experience age, and I've talked a little bit about employee engagement. They are not one and the same. And you can also fill in employee with candidate. Engaging your candidates is not the same as giving them a true candidate experience. It's one piece of it. And here's the example I like to give. So we're headed into football season, right? College football kicks off this weekend. So let's say that tomorrow, it's the day before the holiday weekend, you tell all your employees, hey, wear your favorite college colors, your college jersey or whatever. We'll party for the opening of college football. Okay, that's an employee engagement activity. And there's nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong at all with that. But does it really drive business results? No, it keeps your employees happy, and there's a piece for that, okay? I'm not downplaying that. There's definitely a piece for that, okay? But come next Friday, are people still happy that you let them wear their college colors this past Friday? No, it's probably forgotten because it's just something that you do, okay? It is one small piece of the employee experience. And so what we have to think about with the employee experience is both sides of the circles here. What are the employees' expectations of their work? What do they need at this point in their careers to be happy, fulfilled, and productive? And what do they want out of that experience? We have to know this. And we'll come back later on in the morning with an exercise to take a look at exactly how people are communicating what they want and how we figure that out. But then there's the organization. It's not all about the people, obviously, okay? Can we design a program and an experience that meets the employees' expectations and wants while also honoring our mission and vision? If we can do that, that's where we have a designed employee experience. And at the end of the session today, Paul's going to walk you through a premier case of a very large, well-known company that gets it right. It's amazing how well they get it right. And just because they're a big, well-known brand, everyone's going to know the brand we're going to talk about, doesn't mean that us little guys can't also drive that same type of experience for our people in our marketplace. And that's regardless of the kind of work that you're doing, whether you're a municipal entity, a small mom and pop, a Fortune 500, a regional player, a worldwide corporation, doesn't matter. You can design what we're talking about. And we're going to show you how to design it and change your culture, because that's really what we're talking about here. This is not just a shift in how you may function as an HR operation. It really is a dynamic shift in the culture of your organization that today's talent is demanding. So what this experience age that we're in is really doing is people want a connection. As Paul mentioned, I mean, we've had the information age. We've had information at our fingertips for the last 20 years, okay? It's how we're experiencing those life events. So Paul and I have a mutual friend. She jumps off of cliffs and things, okay? I don't need to jump off of a cliff, but when she jumped off of a cliff, she had a GoPro. So she took that footage and you could see the experience and kind of live vicariously through her, right? And that's how we're experiencing life now. I don't think people should jump out of airplanes, but if you jump out of an airplane, good for you. The only way I'm doing it is if my life is in danger, okay? I want to stay strapped in my seat. But if people want to have that experience and jump out of an airplane, go for it and send me the GoPro, right? And so this idea of wanting to experience things is one that we're seeing. It's not just in the social setting, okay? Think about, okay, so we already established that the bulk of you are Gen Xers like Paul and I, okay? And so this is something our parents probably experienced and not so much us, but maybe some of you can remember this as a little kid. Perhaps, the next door neighbors went on vacation and this is back maybe in the 70s. And they came home from vacation, and invariably what happened? This family comes home from vacation. Type into the chat room what used to happen when your neighbor came back from vacation. Maybe you were watching the dog or the cat or bringing the newspaper in for them, but what happened when they came back from their vacation? I've had people say, well, they came and got their mail from you. They came and they brought you a pie for watching the dog. Yeah. But I'm talking about, what about their vacation happened when they got back?
They have stories and show pictures, says Gina.
Ah, yes, Gina. So they would come back, right? And they would either go to the photo mat and get their film developed and show you pictures, or if you want to go old school, it was a slideshow. And they would invite you over and they'd put the slide projector on, and you'd rather poke your eyes out than go see the Joneses pictures of Niagara Falls, right? But what happens today? We get on Facebook, we take pictures of ourselves with selfies, we get the fancy cocktail and we take the picture of it and the beautiful dessert, and we take pictures of it. And our friends say, oh, that dessert looks awesome. Oh, how was that cocktail? Oh, the falls are magnificent, right? It's experience. People are living through our experience, okay? And so that's the biggest concept to understand about this experience age, is that how we're approaching life is very different now. And we saw that the pandemic just lit this whole thing on fire. You know, when we went into lockdown, and all of a sudden we can't just go hang out with our friends. We can't just go down to the pub and meet them for a beer on a Friday. All of a sudden you saw all of these things pop up of people doing things online and having game nights online, because we still wanted that experience of camaraderie and friendship. Okay, we didn't want to put our lives on hold because of this thing that was going on. That's again, it's pulling into our work lives now too. We want to experience each other's work lives. And it's no longer this idea of, oh, when I punch out at 5 o'clock and go home, my work life is done. We know that that kind of 9 to 5 mentality has been gone for a long time now, doing thanks to a large part to technology and the fact that, you know, we're online and getting emails and everything at all hours. But people's essence is still about wanting to get the most out of life. And so that work-life fit, how they're able to blend all of that together, and the lines of that blend are blurring more and more. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it complicates things for us in terms of how we drive that connection. So, you know, why do we have to worry about this? Why do we have to make this change? Well, it's because we've got to design a work experience for our people that shows them value. Now, this does not mean they're in Wonderland, wandering around and everything is peaches and cream and rose petals falling from the sky every day. It's not what we're talking about. Work is work. There are going to be bad days, right? I'm self-employed. I have bad days, okay? It happens. But what we're talking about from an employee experience is that overall, they say, you know what? I know there's going to be bad days. I know sometimes that customer is going to be yelling at me, or that employee is going to come into my office and they're going to be complaining about something, and there's going to be some stress or whatever. That's going to happen. Sarah, can I ask you to mute yourself, please? Thank you. But overall, what they're looking at is that work is a positive experience, that they're invigorated by it. So it's not about eliminating every negative thing in the workplace. There's going to be challenges, there's going to be problems. But what people want is that ongoing, you know, at the end of the week, you know what? Yeah, I had some hurdles to overcome, but it was a good week. I'm still getting behind what my company is all about. One of my clients is a distributor of car wash supplies. They do predominantly, their client base is predominantly small mom and pop. You know, they run the car washes things, but also car dealerships and things like that. And they've got a nationwide network of distribution. One of the things that they're currently searching for their first HR director level person. And I've been screening a few people for them. And one of the people that was interviewing, I shared with them the fact that this company, it's still family run, and they give a ton of money and time back to their local community where their corporate office is. And this person said, well, can you tell me a little bit more about that? So I started telling them about they're really committed to developing that the town that they're in has gone through some tough times, and it's seeing a bit of a resurgence, and due in no small part to this client investing some money back in buying rundown homes, rehabbing them, and then getting them back on the market for low-income families. They're big on developing like the Boys and Girls Clubs, even pet shelters, just really any way they can get this community back up and solid again. It's just phenomenal what they're doing. And in the one interview, the candidate said to me, Ed, you know, I'm coming out of corporate America where they give money to every charity, but you don't really feel connected to it. Wow, how cool would it be to be involved with a company with that type of connection? And so I talked to the client about this, and I said to the owners, you know, we've really got to leverage this. And the owners are adamant about not doing it because they're humble guys. They're second generation owners. And they're just, they say, Ed, we do it because it's the right thing to do. We care about our community and the town that we're in. That's why we do it. We don't seek the publicity. We don't want the publicity. And so where I'm having this stalemate with them is I can appreciate the humility of it, but I'm also trying to help them see that today's employees want to know those things because they want to get behind it. And this company, they don't have a lot of turnover. Once you've been there, especially in their warehouse positions, which is usually a really tough one in today's market, if you get an employee to about 6 months, they don't lose people because they take care of their people. It is an amazing work experience there. Their office team, their customer service team, decades of experience in some cases with the company. So they've got that positive experience, but they're putting, it's the old light under the bushel basket, right? They're not sharing it with the masses. That's something we've got to consider. And so really what I'm asking you to do is think differently about your employee experience, and that it has to be a business priority. What is really going on in our business with how our people are experiencing their work life? Now, here's the silly thing. I was on a podcast the other week, and the podcaster said, Ed, what is the number one thing that business executives ask you? And I started to laugh. I'm like, that's easy, because I invariably get asked, Ed, how do I know what my people want? I'm like, okay, well, I don't work for NASA and I don't have an engineering degree, but this isn't rocket science. You just got to ask them. You got to ask them, what do you want? And in fact, if we have time, I'm going to run you through a little bit of an exercise later on this morning about how we do that. How do we ask them what they want, and how do we deliver on it? I mean, it's not all about giving the people everything they want. We've got budget limitation things, but you would be surprised at the simple things that people want that really don't cost us much. One of my clients is an advertising agency, and the owner is an aging boomer, but his entire staff is comprised of Gen Xers and millennials. And of course, it's an advertising agency. They are creative types. And they have been requesting of him for some time now to have the workplace be casual. He still comes in pretty much in a button-down shirt, blazer most days, dress slacks and loafers. And so he asks, people to wear a nice shirt, pair of slacks, shoes, that kind of thing. And so I'm sitting there with him a little while back, and he said, I don't understand. They want to come to work casual. And I said, well, what's the problem with allowing your people to come in casual? He says, well, I just don't understand. Like, why shouldn't we dress and look professional? And I said, okay, well, do you have clients come into you? He said, no, it's very, very rare. Most of the time after we design an advertising campaign, we're going out to the client to pitch that campaign. I said, okay, so why wouldn't you let your people who you're paying for their brain power and their creativity to come to work in comfortable clothes so that they can focus on that creativity for you? Now, I get we don't want people in flip-flops and flannel pajama pants, coming into work, right? But why not a sweatshirt and a pair of jeans? If we put some parameters around what is acceptable but casual, we could do this. And he was stuck on the fact that back in the day, he was wearing a tie to work, and he thought casual was, well, I just don't wear a tie today. Okay, today's people want something different. And again, I come back to, look, you can offer them a casual work environment, and it's not going to cost you a dime. Like, this is not something that you have to spend money on to drive an employee experience. So I got him convinced on that. So a little while later, we're having another discussion. He says, well, you know what they want now, Ed? He said, now they want a Keurig in the break room. I said, so? He says, well, I got coffee in there for them. I said, okay, you got a coffee pot and the options are regular and decaf, right? He says, yeah. I said, now you understand, right, that you get the Keurig, you can get the pods that are cider and the cocos and the teas and the flavored coffees, right? You understand why they're asking. He goes, yeah, but why do we need that? And I said, Because your people are asking for it, and it's probably not going to cost you much. So the homework I gave him before our next coaching session was cost it out. Figure out what your coffee is costing you now and what it would cost to put the Keurig in there and all the accoutrements, right? So he came back to me. He's like, Ed, I figured out it's going to cost me $2,500 a year. I said, that's a drop in the bucket, right? He says, yeah. I said, so why wouldn't you do that? He says, I just don't understand why they want it. Doesn't matter whether you understand why they want it, right? If it's something that's within our budgetary means, why wouldn't we do something like that for our people? We're paying them for their brains. Let's get them in a position where their brains are totally focused on writing ad campaigns for their clients. That's really what we're talking about from a business priority, right? Let's get our people in the right position to succeed for us. And part of that, people think, oh, well, I got to give them the great benefits and the raises and the comp and all these. Yeah, that's all part of it. But that isn't the work experience itself. That's the payday experience. It's what happens on the days we don't get, quote, paid, right? When the paycheck doesn't show up in our bank account, that drives the rest of our experience. So it's time to revisit whether your processes are hindering or helping the experience. So we talked, Paul talked about the candidate experience of getting on their mobile phone and trying to get in. But here's an example. I was working with a client on some cultural transformation and how they were rewarding their people and how they were trying to drive a better experience for their customers. And this client had a pretty significant part of their workforce that was a customer service phone center. And like most of you, if you call one of those 800 numbers, the last thing you want to do is tell your story 5 times, right? You don't want to call and you get me on the phone, you tell me the story and I say, oh, that's not for me. So I'm going to shoot you over to Paul. And now you have to tell Paul the story. And Paul says, oh, I can't. I'm going to send you over to John and so on. And that's annoying for us as customers. So what this client said to me is, Ed, we want to get to one call resolution where we want to empower our people to know our products in a way that they can just solve the problem. I said, that's huge, right? So we engaged in some customer service training with them, got their skill sets up to par. But here's the problem. On the wall, they had one call resolution. They're trying to change this culture, right? Stay focused on the client. Put in the chat box how you believe they compensated this customer service telephone team. How did that team earn their bonuses on top of their, for their performance bonuses? Go ahead and throw your ideas in the chat box for me. I know it always takes there's always a little bit of a delay in the responses showing up. So I apologize for the
number of calls, quality of calls, resolution of issues, says Rita. Go dogs.
Go dogs, Rita says. Go Irish, Rita. There you go. How about that? No, so Rita says, Rita says it was number of calls, call quality,
and resolution of issues.
And the resolution of the issue. Okay, so Rita, you're actually a little bit more progressive than they were. The sole way that this customer service team earned its bonuses was the number of calls taken per hour. And I said, guys, you can't talk about one call resolution and then turn around and tell someone I'm going to bonus you out based on how many clients you take care of in an hour. That's a process that does not support the experience, not of your customer, nor of the employees. You're teaching your employees to take care of the customer and do whatever they can to get the thing resolved. Meanwhile, you're saying, hey, get off the phone. Let's go, take your calls, and I'm going to bonus you out for that. Do we have processes like that that are causing cultural issues for us? That is a big question to ask yourself. And if you want to really know whether you've got those kind of things, ask your people. Because if I guarantee you, you might sit there and go, oh no, we don't have any of that stuff going on. But your people will tell you whether or not it's going on. Are they being held accountable for things that would seem to drive certain business priorities at the detriment of other business priorities? When we see those kinds of things, it impacts our culture, it impacts employee experience, and employees will start to check out. And therein lies the problem, right? We get that presenteeism where people show up for work, but they're just not committed to us. Processes are needed. I am a big fan of processes from a streamlining and a continuity. We need them, but we have to analyze them to make sure they're not getting in the way of other things we're trying to achieve. I mean, think about, 20, 25 years ago in the workplace, we went to casual Fridays and everyone's like, woohoo, casual Fridays, right? Now, back then I was working for UPS. I spent a number of years in management there, and we were, dark suit, guys, dark suit, white shirt, colored tie. That was it. So when we got casual Fridays, this was a beautiful thing. But think about it now through today's lens. How silly were casual Fridays? Like, that was an idea of the boomers, right? Like, hey, let's kind of chill because these Gen Xers, they're a little more chill than we are. So we'll toss them this bone. What made Fridays so special? Why wasn't it dress down Tuesdays, right? If I can dress one way one day of the week, why not the rest of the days of the week? I'm not changing the work that I'm doing or how I'm interacting with customers. And so that process quickly became where we're seeing, to the point now, I don't know if we've got anyone from a legal profession here, but you walk into a lawyer's office today, at least the ones that I do business with, most of them, unless they're in court, they're not wearing suits even. Bankers not wearing suits today. Our workforce has changed very much because we're realizing it's about driving the experience that the employees want. And just like my advertising agency, do they really have to dress a certain way to be effective? So I want you there, I'm breaking every rule of presenting here with this slide, and it's intentional, okay? Because I'm not going to go bullet by bullet here, but I want you to look at the gray side here, the old rules of employee experience, okay? And I'm just going to pick a couple things out, but I put all of these on this slide because, as I said, you're going to get this as a handout, so I want you to have this to refer to. But take a look at the second bullet point. Culture is a topic on the wall, where we say one call resolution, it's on the wall. People are our most important asset. Safety is our number one priority. We put all that garbage up there, right? But are we living it? Are we measuring it? We can measure culture. We can measure engagement. We can measure employee experience. If we're not doing it, there's a problem. We're putting money at something and we're not sure what the return on our investment is. Okay. Take a look at total rewards. I do a lot of work with my clients on their compensation and reward systems. It's important, right? But if all we're doing, and I get this call, hey, Ed, would you do a salary survey for us and get me the results? Yeah, I'm happy to do that. But then the follow-up is, what are you doing with that? If all you're doing it is for the benchmarking and the litmus test, how are you using that to make your total rewards program better for your employee experience? How is it increasing their life experiences, right? So what I want you to do for a piece of homework with this slide is really take a look at how many things are you doing on the left side of the screen here, the old way of doing things, versus what we're doing over here on the new rules. Now, I did have someone, I was recently talking on this topic, brought a similar slide up, and they said, well, Ed, so are you saying we shouldn't do engagement surveys? Nope, not saying that at all. It's what we're doing with the results we're not doing in most cases. That's the problem. I mentioned earlier the insurance company I was working with. What spurred their challenge or to bring me in was that they had done an engagement survey. And coming out of the pandemic, it was not good. It was, and before it had been really good. And so what we wanted to focus on is, well, what was different now? What changed in the 12 months or so of the pandemic that changed how their people were engaged and what they wanted? And in that case, what we found out was the president kept saying, we're better together. We're better when everyone's under one roof. We get more work done. We get better service for our customers. The problem was that the stats and the business metrics didn't show that. Their business grew during the pandemic. People were more productive during the pandemic. And now he's saying, we want you back in the office. And they're saying, wait a minute, if we just grew this company and we hit all of our numbers, what difference does it make if we all come back together? And what was interesting is, being in insurance, of course, there's a lot of printing that has to happen. So there were people that were essential employees that had to come to the office every day to get the printed materials out to customers. Those people were saying, hey, we don't want y'all coming back into this office. We worked a lot better. We were more efficient when there were less people around here. It was an interesting dynamic. So the new rule is, okay, we take that engagement survey, but how do we use the results in that to drive a better employee experience and not just improve the survey numbers for the next year? Because that's how too many, they say, oh, we want to get this survey number from 80% to 85% next year. I don't care about the numbers so much as what we're doing to them to drive an employee experience. That's where the new rule of engaging our employees is all about. So again, homework for you would be to take this slide and really go down through each side here and assess where you are and how do you move over onto the gold side. You can think about getting it on the gold standard, right? How do we focus on the things? Because this is what our people are telling us. These new rules are the rules that we need to play by. So the question is, where do you fall right now? Does your business, do the leaders in your organization understand the expectation for employee experience? Do they buy into that? Some of you are probably sitting there going, nope, my boss would never go for what you're talking about. Okay, that's going to be a problem. It's not about giving the employees what they want. It's about driving the experience they need. Those are two very, very different things. And we do have to focus on a business priority, just like safety and production. We need to focus on that employee experience because it drives so many other things. When's the last time that you ask the questions that need to be asked to discover and understand what your people want? That's a big question. And we're going to take a break shortly. And when we come back from break, I'm going to show you a couple questions you should be asking and the power of asking those right questions. And finally, can you take what we're going to look at after the break and help pull that into a unified vision? And can you turn that vision into a reality? Again, I believe this needs to be a measurable business priority for those of us in HR. And before we go to break, I want to give you a story. So I was working with an HR team that was struggling to deliver on basic HR services, to the point that the CEO had brought me in because he didn't believe that the HR function was performing properly and wanted me to take a look at it and work with them to revamp themselves, kind of reinvent themselves. And so as part of that, I wanted to ask employees, hey, what's the service like you're getting from HR? What's happening? One lady sat down with me and she says, yeah, I got a call from HR the other week about a job opportunity. I'm like, oh, that's cool. She goes, no, it wasn't. I've been working here for 6 months. I said, okay, wait a minute. So the call you got wasn't about like a promotion or a transfer to something else that you might like. She goes, oh no, they called to offer me a job. I said, wait, I thought I wasn't hearing her correctly. Literally, this woman had been working and getting paid by the company for 6 months. And somehow someone from HR didn't realize that. Okay. What kind of employee experience is that? There's some process that fell through there. How do you think she felt? I'll give you a personal experience. I had worked inside an accounting firm for a while. And as such, I was running the external HR consulting practice, but also I had internal HR responsibilities. One of the things that we did for all of our people is on their birthday, they got a little gift card for like Starbucks or something. They got a birthday card. My birthday rolls around. I walk into my desk and it says, "Happy birthday, Michael" on it. Now, obviously my name is Ed, but what most people don't know is my first name is Michael. I go by my middle name. So technically the card was correct. But if you saw me like in the city and said, "Hey, Michael," I wouldn't bat an eye. I just keep, well, nobody calls me Michael. Nobody has ever called me Michael. Okay. So I take the card down the hall to the lady in HR who knows me quite well. And I said, "Hey, got my birthday card today." She's like, "Oh, great, Ed. Um, congratulations, looking forward to going to lunch," or whatever, because we would go out as a team. I said, "Well, thank you, but here's my question." I laid the card down. I said, "This says Michael." And she says, "Yeah." Now, mind you, she's the one responsible for this and hand writes these cards out. Okay. I said, "Well, why does it say Michael?" She goes, "Well, that's what's on your paycheck." I said, "But I'm Ed." Yeah. Okay. So why are we doing this? Like, what is wrong with this picture, right? That's an experience that's problematic. If we can't get it right for our own people that we work with in our own department, holy cow, right? So can we translate what our people are telling us they want into something that becomes a reality with their experience? That's where we're going to head in the second half today, are these actionable things based on what we've talked about already to start building the employment brand, driving the marketing we need to drive from a recruiting standpoint. Paul's going to walk you through a really cool recruiting funnel that we've developed that shows how you nurture candidates, very much like your marketing team nurtures potential customers, in order to drive the experiences that the candidates need while also fulfilling the experiences that your employees need. So with that, we're going to take a break. It is 9:52 Eastern time. Let's plan to come back at 10 o'clock. We'll give you a nice break here and stretch out. Paul, the reformed chiropractor, is going to tell you, get up, move, stretch out. Don't use this time to like pound away at emails and things. Get up, move about, take your rest break so we can come back firing away for the final 2 hours. We'll see you soon. Okay, welcome back. It is 10 a.m. Give one more minute just for folks to kind of settle in with their coffee, water, tea, or whatever you might be drinking at this hour of the morning. Hopefully it's not anything harder than that. We're not at the weekend just yet. Paul wants to know what you did on your break just now. It's kind of like, what did I do on my summer vacation? Although we don't need to know if you...
No specifics.
Yeah, we don't even know specifics, but did anyone stand up and stretch? We could start there. Did anyone refresh their coffee? Did anyone answer a voicemail? Did you work when we told you to take a break? Perhaps.
We wanted to get a little insight into your personality.
Yeah.
Coffee. Valencia has coffee. I need to get some better coffee.
Better coffee. That's what she says?
No, me.
Oh, you need to get some better coffee.
Go buy some.
So Paul needs
Miller,
better
guilty
coffee.
of working, but also stretching.
Okay, we'll take that. You get a C+ on that then. At least you stretched.
Walking around the office, got some ice for sparkling water.
Oh, hey, there we go, Gina. Is it flavored sparkling water, Gina?
Yes, it is.
But she didn't tell us what the flavor is.
Key lime.
Okay, there we go. Key lime. Nothing wrong with key lime, especially tequila that's flavored like key lime. That's always a good one. I don't advocate that at 10 o'clock in the morning. Even I know a lot of your HR people, and maybe you want to drink at 10 o'clock in the morning. Please don't. That's all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
So, hey, what I'd like to do real quickly, I want to introduce Harold Ford from Net at Work. As I mentioned at the beginning, they are our presenting sponsor. I know many of you know Net at Work, and many of you probably know Harold, but I want to give him the opportunity to hop on here, tell you a little bit about Net at Work, the cool things that they're doing, and why they wanted to partner with us on presenting this. So Harold, go ahead and unmute yourself and hop in here, my friend.
All right. Thank you, Ed. Can you see me? I turned my camera
Gotcha.
on. Awesome. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. As Ed said, my name's Harold Ford.
And everything.
What's that?
I said, we got you with your fancy background there and all of that.
Hey, we're a technology firm. We have to have fancy backgrounds.
Exactly. Go for it, my friend.
So good morning, everyone. As Ed said, my name's Harold Ford. I'm the practice director here at Net at Work. And first of all, thanks to Ed and Paul for having me today. I truly appreciate it. Truly love to get in front of folks and engage with them. So as Ed said, I see several of our customers on the session today. So I'm glad you could participate in today's morning session. Here at Net at Work, we unleash the power of our clients' businesses through the transformative nature of technology. And I know that might sound a bit cliche, but when you think about business technology, from ERP and accounting systems to CRM and sales systems, HR payroll systems, IT managed services, e-commerce, cloud solutions, and hosting, Net at Work really helps small and medium-sized businesses facilitate growth, profitability, and improve customer and employee experiences. As you've been hearing this morning, as Ed's been talking and Paul's been talking, the war for talent is alive and well. And as Ed said, the labor shortage isn't going away soon. As a matter of fact, I sat in on an AICPA webinar not too long ago, and they said to refill the labor shortage, it takes a generation from baby to 18 years old. So in my practice, where we focus specifically on HR technology, building a superior employee experience, which starts with your recruiting and branding efforts, is critical. Having the right HR technology stack is a vital component of all of this. And as an example, as Paul talked about a little earlier with some career builder stats on dropped applications, I have some even starker reality stats to share. A recent SHRM study found that 92% of applicants never finished the online application. And one of the biggest reasons for that is that average number of click-throughs it takes to get through the application is 51. That's a lot. In a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, technology is actually hampering efforts instead of improving the business. And added to that, in today's SMB, they're no longer competing for talent with the down the street brick and mortar organization. You're all competing with Google and Amazon and Tesla. And trust me when I tell you, these orgs invest deeply in world-class technology to support their employee recruitment and retention strategies. At Net at Work, we combine deep technology and business expertise with industry fluency to build long-term trusted relationships with our customers. And we help companies that are tired of owning legacy systems that don't address today's technology objectives. They're frustrated with manual processes and have siloed applications that aren't integrated one with another. In short, we help businesses fully embrace digital transformation. So to that, I'd ask each of you, what is your technology strategy to elevate your candidate and employee experiences? Is your technology supporting increased employee engagement? Is your HCM providing the right analytics and deep insights so you can help the business make actionable business decisions? If any of this resonates with you, I'd love to chat with you further. My 3 minutes is up, so please feel free to reach out to me at any time. My email address is hford@netatwork.com, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Thanks. Appreciate the time, Ed and Paul. And for all of you, enjoy the rest of your morning. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Harold. Always good to see your smiling face. Harold and I have known each other a long, long time, and it's always a pleasure when he and I can bring our organizations together to add value to our clients and those that we work with jointly. So
I calculated this morning, Ed, 25 years, my friend, 25 years.
That's a lifetime. We're not even that old. Harold and I started working together when we were in preschool. We had our first business idea together.
That's exactly right.
25. You're right, dude. That's insane. So sorry for, I think it's Cassie's our millennial, and I forget who our Gen Z is. If we just made you feel terribly young, but that makes me feel terribly old. So, but at any rate, it's been a great working relationship, and I love the team at Net at Work. And I know so many of you on the call today know a lot about Net at Work and have done business with them. Great organization. So thanks again, Harold, for hopping in here as we transition back into our topics. So where we left off, we're asking where we are currently. And I said when we came out of break, I'm going to get you thinking. So here we go with the thinking part. When we think about the employment brand, what we're doing is we're combining our culture, which should be a business priority and be focused on, with that employee experience. When we blend those two in whatever way they blend, that informs our employment brand. Now, one of the examples that I used earlier was from the medical practice. Their employee experience was not a good one, right? Remember I said they weren't, people there weren't willing to tell their friends to come work there. The culture was one where the docs were very, how do I want to put this politely? Demanding, okay, of their people because they demanded excellence. They had amazing bedside manner, but they didn't have great employee relations, and that informed the culture. And that was impacting the employment brand. So in my work with that organization, it wasn't just about working with the HR team to drive an employee experience, but working with the docs and the management team to change the culture of the organization. Those two things have to go hand in hand. Where we're going to run coming out of the break is we're going to talk about culture. We've talked a lot about the employee experience. We're going to add culture in now and the things that we need to look at from a cultural perspective. So when you look at this guide to cultural transformation, we're going to spend a lot of time on this here. And then I'm going to get you thinking about a couple of things. So the first step is to figure out what business outcomes do we really need to focus on. And there should only be a couple, okay? A board of directors brought me in a year ago to work with the CEO at their long-term care facility. And the CEO was failing. Their occupancy, their bed occupancy rates were down, turnover was up. It just, revenues were off. They're trying to build another facility on their campus. It just, things were not going well. And so when I sat down with the CEO and I said, hey, how many things are you managing? How many unique business goals are you focused on? He said 13. I have 13 things I'm monitoring. I said, that's way too many. He said, Ed, I got to manage all of them. You don't understand our business. I said, okay, well, just, humor me, lay out these 13 things. And so he did. And I said, okay, well, this could go to your finance department. This could go over to operations. This could go to admin. You don't personally have to manage these things. And he said, no, that's where you're wrong, Ed. He goes, in order for us to be successful, I need to manage these 3 things. These are my goals for the year. And he said, that's what's going to drive my success and the success of this organization. And I said, you understand that 13 objectives is too many. You cannot focus on 13 objectives. You have a manager. He says, Ed, you can't convince me otherwise. I said, you do understand that you are failing right now. And you're failing because you're going in too many different directions and not trusting your team. We had a very frank discussion. He was not happy with my frankness, but that's what I'm there to do, is to transform what was going on there. And so we had to break down what was really going on, which was he was a control freak. And it got to the point where after it was about 3 months in there, when I went back to the board, I said, you've got to make a transition. He cannot lead this organization. He's not the person to lead you through the transformation you need to get to, because he's not willing to change. So we found the right person, which happened to be the CFO, and we elevated her, and we focused on 3 key things for her, and then pushed those other 13 or the other 10 things, which were important to manage, to other members of the executive team and held them accountable. But the point is that if we're going to transform the culture of our organization, or even the culture of your HR function, you can only focus on a few concrete business outcomes, things that are measurable. So that medical practice, when I was working with the HR director there on this particular piece, I said, okay, when you report into the leadership team and you're giving your updates, what does that look like? She goes, Ed, they don't give a crap about what I have to say. I said, well, what gives you that impression? And she says, they don't ask questions. They sit there, their eyes glaze over. And I said, okay, so humor me and tell me, present to me what you presented at the last meeting. She proceeds to say, well, turnover is at 5%, and that leads the industry, because our industry is at 7.5%. We currently have 5 open positions. We've got 35 active applicants that we're interviewing for those positions. So she starts rattling off all these stats. After about 7 minutes or so, I stopped and said, okay, that's enough. I said, I don't care about any of that. And her eyes got big. She's like, Ed, but those are the things that HR is supposed to be doing. I said, no, I didn't say you shouldn't be doing them. I said, I don't care about what you're telling me right now. No wonder the docs, again, who were the owners of the practice, they glaze over. I said, they don't care what your turnover rate is. Doesn't matter. What they care about is, what's it costing them? And more importantly, who are we losing? I mean, if the 5% turnover that you're bragging about are all your top performers walking out, monster problem, right? She didn't know who was really walking out. I said, if it's the bottom 5% of your workforce, hold the door open for them. Get them out, right? So it's not about that number. It's about who's in that number. And then she talked about, the open positions number of candidates. I said, don't care. Tell me the length of time that it's taking you to fill those positions and what that's costing. And tell me what it's costing you to get those 35 active applicants in. That I care about. As a business owner, I care about the dollars behind what you're doing in HR. And I can't stress that enough to those of you on this call that are HR professionals. You've got to talk in the terms that management wants to hear, and that's usually dollars. Doesn't mean they don't care about the people. You're there to talk about the dollars and focus on those as business outcomes. everything that we do in HR can be and should be monetized. Now, once we have the concrete business outcomes that we want to focus on, either as a corporation as a whole or just in the HR function, the next thing is we have to drive the emotional commitment in our people. Here's where you need to start with just a handful of people. Who are your informal leaders? Who are the people when you walk into the break room, they're holding court, right? They're sitting there at the table and other people are listening to them. You know who these informal leaders are in your organization. Go get them. When I was at UPS, one of the facilities that I was responsible for within HR, their evening shift had the worst safety record in our entire district. And our district was basically the eastern half of Pennsylvania. Worst of any shift in any building. So we had to fix it. Obviously, it's not good to be on the bottom of the safety list. So we went out and we grabbed a couple of the employees that were the informal leaders in that shift. And mind you, most of these were college kids working. I mean, that's how I had started my career at UPS, was working the docks as a college kid. And we brought them in and said, why do you care so much? And found out that they were committed to what they were doing. And so we got those people on the safety committee and then got them out working with their peers and correcting them in their safe behaviors in the workplace, because they were the ones that were emotionally committed to what we were doing. And they helped to spread a new culture within the organization. What ended up happening, because we did that grassroots effort with our employees, we were able to turn that shift around in 9 months till they had the best safety record in the district. Worst to best, 9 months. It was an amazing transformation, all because of the emotional commitment that we got out of our people. It wasn't about beating our fists saying, thou shalt work safely. No, it was about engaging those folks and reminding them why, especially as a young 20-something, mostly male workforce who feels at that age that they're invincible and can't be injured, to say, hey, you know what? Take care of your body. Yes, we need you to be productive, but we need you to lift properly and care for yourself like you're caring for the packages you're handling. And that got through to the people. Now, the next step in your cultural transformation, once you have the emotional commitment of your people, at least the key people in your organization, then here's where the employee experience comes into play. We've talked about how you work on designing that compelling experience. And this is where that takes root. Culture transformation takes a lot of time. And where it usually gets stuck is right here at step 3, this compelling experience. We talk a great game, we put the Jelly of the Month Club out there, and then our people don't buy into it because they know it's Jelly of the Month Club, or they know whatever you're saying that you're going to work on is only going to last for a certain period of time, so they don't bother truly committing to it. If we're going to change the culture in our organization, it's got to start, I believe, not just at the top, but at the bottom. We've got to have the sandwich effect. Leadership's got to be committed, but then our frontline employees got to be committed, and we start working inward from that. So we've got to ask our employees what's going to drive a compelling experience with them. And again, I'm going to show you some questions here in a little bit that's going to help with that challenge. Now, some of you are in very large organizations, and you're probably going, holy cow, Ed, where do I start with all of this? Look at your highest impact roles. Now, that doesn't mean what you might think of as the most important or the highest up in the org chart or anything along those lines. Who has the most direct impact on your customer and on your bottom line? Those are the positions you start with. And what I'm willing to bet, if you look at your org chart and you look at who has the highest impact, I bet there are people on the lower end of the org chart, the people who have direct contact or direct impact on your customers. So I mentioned that when I started UPS, I was working the docks, and I would go in at 3 o'clock in the morning. I would sort packages and load the brown delivery trucks, and I'd be out by 8 o'clock. Home, shower, go to class. And I understood that you had to get the right box on the right truck. And there was an understanding that not only on the right truck, but in the right spot on the right truck. Okay. But what was never really communicated was the impact that that would have if I didn't get that right. There was never that bigger picture of understanding how, if I don't get the right box on the right truck in the right spot, what that does to the driver's day, and therefore what happens to the customers. We've got to be able to paint a picture with our people of what it means to really serve our customers. And so as a frontline employee like that, who never would see a customer at that stage, I had a bigger impact on whether you got your box on time than that driver did. Because the driver can only deliver what's on his or her truck in the order that it's loaded in. So if you didn't get your box on time or at all, probably was the result of some hungover college kid putting something in the wrong spot or on the wrong truck. Okay. So when we think about transforming the culture, start with those high impact roles that have a crucial impact on our customers. And then we go after the behavior change that we need. We've got the emotional commitment. We've got the experience. We're working with the important roles. What behaviors need to change within our organization to foster that experience and the desire of our people to want to take part in this new environment? So when I think about the safety transformation we did at UPS, it was all about getting these, again, mostly young guys to understand, hey, just because you're 20 years old and in probably the best shape of your life, it doesn't mean you can't be injured if you don't follow proper lifting techniques. Getting them to care about their well-being was critical instead of just caring about production. And so that was a big behavior change that we had to undertake. We had to get management more focused on safety than just production. And that took time. And we did some incentives and those kinds of things to help change that behavior. But you've got to think about how to change behavior. And the purpose of our time here today isn't about a behavior change project necessarily, because most of you know what it takes to change a person's behavior. It takes some training, it takes reinforcement, and in order to drive new habits. But that is critical, because I think back to a warehouse situation where a big no-no is obviously someone getting on a moving conveyor belt and using it as a people mover almost. And it took a high-level manager coming in and firing another management person for being on a conveyor belt for that workforce to realize, wow, this is serious. You don't get up there and stand on a moving conveyor belt, whether you're in management or an hourly, doesn't matter. That's a behavior change and a mentality that we've got to focus on if we're going to change our culture. Now, as you're changing your culture, you're going to have problems present themselves. The best way to solve those problems, regardless of what they are, is to ask your people for help. Now, you've probably heard this before, but the people on the front lines, they know where the problems are and they know the solutions. My wife's in sales, and she often deals with a lot of shipping managers. And she was out with a client a couple years back, and they had totally revamped the entire shipping dock, the movement of forklifts and how people were loading, all this stuff. And she asked the logistics manager, well, what happened here? And he said, well, we brought in this engineering firm and they did time studies and they revamped this, and we're going to be much more productive. We're going to hammer this out. She said, oh, okay, cool. And they spent tens of thousands of dollars on this project. She was back in a few months later. Everything was back to the way it used to be. And she said, what happened? And he said, well, the new routes that were designed for the forklifts, that didn't work, and people were on top of one another. What was the bottom line? They brought in these high-powered engineers to time study and focus all this stuff. They never took the time to ask the people who were going to be impacted by this whether this stuff would work. And then they sat down with their folks and said, okay, we recognize you spent money. This didn't work. How can we make some efficiencies here? And the people came up with the solutions they needed. So just because, we're wearing the tie to work, so to speak, doesn't mean that we have all the answers. If we're going to change our culture, then that means including everyone. And we've been talking so much about the employment experience. if you have driven that commitment in your people, they want to be part of the solution. They want to help you solve your problems. I guarantee you they do, but they need to be asked. Now, I always get asked, well, Ed, how long does this take? Don't know. Depends on where your culture is right now. Depends on how large your organization is. Depends on whether you're under one roof or many roofs. Are you a dispersed workforce? Are you a global worker? I mean, all of those things impact. All I do know is step 7 is you've got to plan and commit to a comprehensive journey, because what's going to happen with citizen-led innovation is you're going to uncover problems that maybe you didn't know existed. And so it's almost like that continuous improvement mindset. There's always going to be something to work on. And here's the problem with culture. It changes constantly. If we don't focus on culture, if we don't make it a business priority, it's not going to go where we want it to go. It's not going to stay where we want it to stay once we get it there. I actually had a business owner say to me one time, Ed, we don't have a culture around here. Can you help me develop a culture? I said, first off, you do have a culture. You just don't know what it is yet. Let's figure out what's going on here. I mean, that's like saying my family doesn't have any traditions. Every family has traditions. Whether you recognize them or not is the question. So this journey of culture transformation will touch every part of your business. When Paul walks you through another case study later on this morning, you'll see how changing the candidate and the employee experience started to filter out into every aspect of this business. And it's a great thing. It's like that snowball going downhill, right? Once you push it a little bit, it just gains more snow, gets bigger and bigger and faster. And so once we recognize that this is a comprehensive journey, now we need to look at the people who are those cultural influencers. We already have their emotional commitment. Now it's time to engage them. How do we help them help us? How do we give them what they need to help us? So with that medical practice, it was sitting down with their cultural influencers and saying, okay, how do we change the perception around here that this isn't a good place to work? Well, some of that was the way the docs treated people. So I had to do some work with the docs on their bedside manner to their own employees and the importance of it. And I get when you're in the operating room, they're the commanding general and it's do this, do this, do this. But the nurses and the staff didn't care about that environment. It was outside the operating room, outside of the ER, where the docs were still very command and control and didn't take time to really blend with their people and include them as part of the team. Now, number 9 is the hardest thing, and it's really hard right now because of the environment we're in for people, okay? You are going to have some people that aren't going to get on that bus with you, right? You've all heard about, the right seats in the bus with the right people. You're going to have some people that aren't going to want to get on the bus. And worst off, you're going to have some people that are going to stand in front of the bus to keep you from going somewhere. I don't advocate running people over, okay? Let's not advocate violence, but you have to include everyone but the unwilling. And what you're going to have to ask yourself is, am I better off moving on without this person and having that seat empty for a little bit than I am having the person in that seat who's going to keep me from progressing? That's a really tough decision to make under any circumstances, but especially in today's tight labor market. But you've probably all been in a situation where you've put off letting someone go only to find out when you did it, employees came to your door and said, thank you, finally, right? They know when someone needs to go. So let's get the unwilling out of there. But first, let's make sure that we understand that whether that person is unwilling or unable. I was working with an airport who had an employee who was just, everyone loved her as an employee, great personality. She was failing in her job though. And the CEO said to me, Ed, we'd love to retain her. We don't know what to do with her. I mean, everyone loves her, but she's just not it. And so I said, well, let me see, she had been with the company about, 12, 14 months. I said, let me see her resume and past work experience. And what we found is she had a whole lot of marketing experience, but but she wasn't in a marketing role with this airport. And so I said, well, is there a way that we can pull in some of her past experiences into her new job? He said, well, actually, Ed, I need someone over on this side here handling this piece in marketing. I said, well, do you want to give it a whirl with her? He's like, well, sure, why not? So we put her in that role. She is blossoming. She's a part of the executive team now. I mean, it was the old adage of she was on the bus, but in the wrong seat. She was willing, and it was just a matter of that leader being willing to take a chance on putting her in a different role before saying, hey, I got to get rid of her. And so don't underestimate that power, okay, in terms of the right people on the right seats. I know it's a tired analogy, but it is just such a good one. And then the final step is, if we set the really good business objectives at the beginning of all this, then we can track them and course correct as needed. So when you think about the engineering firm that we worked with, and Paul gave you an example of some of the things we worked with them on, one of the things we were able to track was their social media engagement. We had the analytics to show that this new way of communicating was working. Their not just job posts views were getting increased, but all their just general, hey, we're out working on this site with a little blurb and little videos. We're getting much more views and interaction. We could show that the new way of their communication was working for them. They were building a following of people that weren't even employed by them, but were following what they were doing. And we may need to course correct. There may be something that we thought was the right way to go, and it's just not quite it. As long as it's not jelly of the month, as long as we gave it time to play out, okay, then maybe it's time to just do a little correction, say, hey, let's fix this over here and go off in a different direction. So here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to give you a couple of things here. I'm going to see if I'm going to stop my share for one moment. And I want to bring up another cool slide here. And we're going to play around with something as soon as I find that slide. Okay. So what I want you to do here is when I bring the slide back up, you're going to rank these items in order. Okay, I want to go back and I need to share this again for you. This is a kind of a fun little exercise. So take a look at these, 8 items here. These are 8 of the most common retention and employee engagement things that we can do. Things that motivate our people. Take a look at this list, and you don't have to rank them in order, but give me the 3 that you think are most important to your people. Don't put them in the chat, but just jot them down here for a moment. The top 3 on this list that you think most motivate the people in your organization right now. Earlier, I had mentioned that there are some things we need to ask our people. This is going to be one of your pieces of homework because we're going to ask our people about this. But right now, I want to get a sense for what you think motivate your people. So just the top 3 here.
Here's some answers.
Oh, okay. We got some answers in the chat. Perfect.
All right. Cassie Wade says culture, compensation, and then training and development.
Okay.
I guess those are in order. Cassie?
Culture, comp, training and development is what you believe your people want. Okay, good. Good. And they don't have to be in any particular order. Just the top 3 is fine. Anyone else want to share?
A. Miller says time and flex, comp, and culture.
Okay, so the flex, the culture, and the comp. Okay.
And Sharon says time flex, growth earning, and culture.
Okay. So we're hearing a couple themes here, which is good.
Gina says time flex, growth and earning, and culture.
Okay.
Sitting next to Sitting next to Sharon.
Okay.
And then Valencia says time and flexibility, benefits, financial compensation.
Okay.
Jay Youngblood says financial compensation, relationship with supervisor, and time and flexibility.
Okay, so here's the cool thing. There's no right or wrong answer there, okay? But I want to show you this next slide. This is where it's kind of fun. So a study was done on this a few years back, and several hundred organizations were surveyed, thousands of managers and thousands of employees surveyed, asked to do what I just did for you. Here's what the managers said in this particular study were important to their people. Okay. Now, again, this isn't right or wrong. It's just the results of that study. Okay. So in this study, these management teams said it was all about the management climate, your supervisor, and then the culture. So notice like time and flex was way down and whatever. Okay. And that's just fine. It's just what they reported. Here's the challenge. Remember, same study, same organizations. Here's what the people said. Now, tell me what the problem is between the two sides of this slide. I think it's pretty glaringly obvious, but let's throw it in the chat. What is wrong with this?
Disconnect between employee and management, says Rita. Go Dogs.
It's a monster disconnect.
Total disconnect.
Right?
Large misalignment.
Misalignment. Yeah. Now, I used this example when I was in a live presentation not that long ago. And I had a lady sitting up front. If she had something in her hand, she was going to throw it at me. She said, Ed, this is wrong. I don't know where you got this data. We've never heard about this. And I don't believe any of this. She was almost hostile with me. She was missing the point. This isn't a right or wrong scenario. All it illustrates is that disconnect between what management thinks the employees want and what the employees in this survey say they want. What I do not want you to do is go back and say, oh, well, Ed shared this idea. We got to work on our benefits, our comp, and our earning potential. No, it's just what these employees in this survey said was important to them. What you need to do, take these 8 things, go ask your people what's important to them right now. That's how you'll know. When people ask me, how do I know what my employees want? And I say, ask them. These are the kinds of discussions you've got to be asking your people. If benefits and comp are that critical right now, find out what it is with the benefits and comp that the people want that fit within your budget. And can you deliver on that? When I was working with this accounting firm, the whole smartphone revolution was just starting to happen. They would go out to recruiting events and come back complaining that they were losing candidates to other regional accounting firms. And what they were hearing is, oh, well, they're giving me my own smartphone. And the recruiters would say, but our pay is so much higher, Ed. They could go out, buy the phone, pay for the plan, and still be pocketing money. And I said, okay, but what's the problem? The market is telling you what they want. Stop telling the market what's better for them. They don't care. Give them the smartphones. But Ed, that's not the right thing to do. It's not as equitable. It's not as rich of a plan. I said, doesn't matter. They're telling you what they want. Deliver on it. So they ended up doing it. They solved some of their recruiting issues. And guess what? Saved money because it was cheaper. People were happy because they were getting what they want. Use this. Doesn't matter what the right answer is. It's just what the right answer is for your people. But I really encourage you to put some focus groups together. Ask your people what they need on this list and execute on the top 3 things. So if we go back to this idea, that's part of changing your culture, right? is how do we blend those three things to drive the employee experience and create the employment brand that we want to create and lead us through that 10-step culture guide. It all comes back to how we position ourselves with those retention and motivation drivers. So I'm going to turn it back to Paul now, because now we're going to go back to the brand promise. We've developed an employment brand, but what does that mean? What do we actually do with it from a marketing perspective? So Paul, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Ed. All right, let's take a little wellness minute again. I get you to stand up and just take your hands and stick them right over your belly button and take a deep breath and make your belly as big as you can. Breathe, 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 and let it out. And do that again. Big breath in, stretch that diaphragm. You've been sitting. And breathe out. We need your brain firing on all cylinders, right? So now put your hands on your chest and breathe into your hands here. Okay, breathe, breathe, breathe. Expand that chest, feel the ribs separate, and then breathe out. And let's do it again. Breathe in, deep, deep breath. Expand, 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 and breathe out. And now we've got your brain oxygenated a little bit. Let's take a little moment and recap here. So Ed's talking about culture change, culture transformation. He went through 10 steps here on what you can do to transform your culture. And we're seeing that culture is a lot more than just having a beer cart come by on Fridays and having casual whatever, even though nobody's actually even wearing pants because we're on Zoom, right? So culture has a lot of different aspects. And I just want to know, just type into the chat, what has stood out for you so far? What did you just write a note down about and just say, wow, that really jumped at me? Is there anything that maybe you're thinking, I'd love to change that? I just don't even know how. Just anything that's popping into your mind, put it in the chat. Let's see what's going on in your heads, because it's a lot of information. It's coming at you really fast, and it sounds really simple when it's just 10 steps to transforming culture. But we run into these barriers, right? We think, I can't do that because. So what's coming up for you? What are we getting, Ed?
Just yet.
Not yet? Still thinking.
Okay, here we got A. Miller says, including everyone but the unwilling, but also finding out why they are unwilling. That's a good one.
Yeah. What else have we got going on? And do you want to speak to any of these, or we've?
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly say that finding out why someone is unwilling is key. Generally, what we find is that the person just doesn't want to buy in. They don't have an emotional commitment in your organization to your organization's mission, vision, purpose, or they don't see their role in it. And so that's usually why that unwillingness is there. And oftentimes it becomes one of those necessary endings where it's time to part ways. I mean, maybe they're an otherwise decent person, but if they're not getting on board, then they are hindering us. Anyone else struggling with something?
The culture thing, it's kind of like, Ed, I've heard you describe it like an amoeba, right? It's just sort of like, it's there, but it's kind of nebulous. Like, how do you even describe it, right? But in a lot of places, you know, there's this really great culture, but we don't even know how to share it. And that's really where we're going with employment brand. So it's really important to get these steps down and really understand what's going on in your organization in the first place. And then even being able to describe it or define it, because that's part of really developing your employment brand. Like, how do you talk about it? And that's why it's really, really important to talk to your people and see what they're saying. Because it's one thing for management to say, yeah, this is our culture and this is what it's like to work here. But there's people down in the trenches working here, and they actually know what it's like. So Ed, when he's sharing how to ask questions and how to get that feedback, that's going to be really important, because when people say stuff, they're not just making it up. They have a really good opinion about how they're experiencing it. And remember, this is the experience age. So it's not about what we want them to say. It's about what they're actually experiencing, and how could we actually shape that? How could we actually help steer that towards what we want our brand to reflect, in both directions? And now we're going into the
it's funny we stop you there, because Gina says one of her challenges is the whole branding piece and changing employee behaviors around that. Right. It's a great segue.
Right. Yeah. So we want our brand to be reflecting a certain type of energy, certain values, but we experience that our team, our people are projecting different values, perhaps. Maybe they don't believe in some of the things that we want them to believe in as an organization. So you might have some problems with, you got unwilling people. Maybe you've got people that don't want to come along on this journey, and they don't want to see change, because what is it about humans, right? Change, no way, don't like it, right? So you got people that are used to how things have always been, but you know, as a company, that in order to grow, there are steps that you want to take, because you have a vision, right? This is about that vision for the company, the core values, and what we are promising to not just the customers and the people we serve, but what do we have to promise to the candidates that we want to bring on board to create change? What do we have to promise to our existing people, so that we can support them in being ambassadors for our brand and bringing it to our customers, and really holding our company up and helping us to develop this brand? So as a company, how do you ensure your organization keeps up with the age of experience? Well, let me ask you this. Did anybody in the last week take a picture of something that they did at work? Anybody take a video of something happening in the office? Who's done that in the last 7 days? And what did you do with that? I mean, who's not taking pictures of what they're eating, right? Or who isn't taking pictures of, look at us, we're here at this event, and this is what's going on right now, right? These things are going up on Instagram, and people are sharing where they are right in the moment. So how much of that's happening at work? Is that happening at all? Is anyone sharing anything about any videos or pictures they're taking?
Not yet.
Not
Even
yet.
if you haven't, just say no. Be curious to know that too. Whether you or even just someone else in the organization has shared something on social media about what's going on in your workplace.
And I guess the interesting question is, like, have you done that about
nothing related to work?
Yeah, it's personal life, right? Or what restaurant was I at? What event? And you're sharing it with your friends or your community. But as the lines between work and life blur, and as we start to create a culture where people can bring their whole selves to work, why do we have a division between what you post about your personal life or what you post about your work life? Like,
so Rita says, take pics all the time, but not related to work. PR handles that for my company. Okay, so that's good, right? But how do we capitalize on that?
Right.
And it's Pam, right? P. Adams is Pam.
Yeah.
Not permitted to do that due to confidentiality. Pam, can you expand on that for a moment? Tell me what you're not allowed to post from a confidentiality standpoint. Because I'd like to figure out, because that's a hurdle, and I'd like to help you solve that if we can today. So we'll give Pam a chance to answer that if you want to talk about the PR thing.
Okay.
What's wrong with that?
All right, and Pam, let us know if you're not hearing Ed, because he's around sort of the side here and maybe not talking to the directional mic. But let's talk about the PR thing right now. is marketing and PR actually showing what's happening with the employee experience? Are they actually, trying to market their brand to customers and their products to customers, versus are they actually trying to market the workplace experience, what's going on in this company, to the candidates, the people that want to work here? Because if you're a company that's doing really amazing things in the community, or you're on the cutting edge of some industry and you're doing something that's new and exciting, like, it's newsworthy, right? Should there be a story on that on the news? Should there be something written up in columns, in the paper, on different boards? Like, are there communities interested in this, right? Look at what we're doing that's so cool in here that that nobody else is doing. And do you want a job here? Like, wouldn't you love to be doing this too? Wouldn't you love to be using your skill sets for this? So, how are we making sure these experiences get out? And if Pam, all right.
So Pam says all manufacturing processes are private, except we do have very good reviews on our website and job sites. Okay, so I get that, Pam. I absolutely get the confidentiality of processes, to be sure. But that doesn't mean that we can't get video and picture footage, preferably video. Maybe not our people actually doing the work. If there's something there, like I remember many years ago, there's a Kellogg's plant near my hometown, and I had a tour of it. They would not let us go to where the Frosted Flakes are made. Now, the reality is that Frosted Flakes are nothing but corn flakes coated in sugar. And there are these big vats that turn them in there to put the sugar on, but we weren't allowed over there, okay, for whatever top secret reason. So I get that, but that doesn't mean that we can in some way, without violating your confidential processes, and it could be as much as like we're doing here, blurring out the background, but yet having our people talking about how cool their work is and what's going on. So I would love to find out more, maybe offline, about how we can help you get over that hurdle so that you can implement some of the branding things we're talking about and sharing the employee experiences without violating confidentiality.
Yeah, because Pam, I think that if you've got processes and in place that are creating great results, are getting outcomes for customers, clients that other companies aren't getting, and you've got people that are working on the front lines doing this, and they're excited about the results they're getting, that's enough, right? As an engineer, or as some sort of worker or skilled person in a certain field, that they're getting to do something that's cutting edge, and that they're making a difference in industries, in people's lives. That's exciting, right? And that attracts more people. And so this point here on the screen, if you have a solid marketing brand in place with a focus on customer experience, the experience age can be your company's golden age, right? Because in the experience age, everybody wants to talk about what they're doing right now in the moment. Everyone wants to show their experiences. And so why do we, so to speak, muzzle people and say they can't share what they're doing? Yeah, there's company secrets, but we're not asking for, what's the Cadbury secret, or what's the secret recipe for Coke in your organization. We're just asking, what's it like to be there? And what do your employees look like when they're on the job? And what are they doing? Are they just gotta make the donuts or whatever? Are they just going to work and doing whatever it is on the line? Or are they excited about the projects that your company is undertaking, or the really interesting way that you approach problems and create solutions for your customers? Because there we have a marriage between your actual business brand and your employment brand. They're coming together. And I hope you're starting to see that there really isn't a whole lot of difference between your business brand and your employment brand, except who you're marketing it to. And that it all starts to come down from your company vision and mission and their core values and all those things. Are they being reflected through the culture, just as Ed was talking with those 10 steps? Are people living it, and is it authentic? And do they actually love this experience? And then, should you not be telling the people that you want to recruit, look how happy our people are. Look how much they love what we do. Look how much they buy into our vision, and they deliver it to our customers, but they're living it. It's fulfilling their dreams, their values in their own lives, because that's what we're seeing that the millennials and Generation Z want, is they want to make a difference, right? They want their values to be aligned with the company values, and they want to work for organizations that are doing things that are meaningful to them. And they want to make sure that the company has a vision that they can buy into. And that's why you can't just have a vision that's on the wall that you did at some strategic planning conference or session like way back, and then you forgot about it. And you can't have core values that you made up, but you never checked again to make sure that everybody on your team has. And that's why culture change, as Ed is talking about, is so critical. So if there's anything that stands out for you from those 10 steps, please continue to just like throw it into the chat if it's popping up for you, or if this is sparking something for you. All right. And then finally, however, your marketing brand is highly impacted by your employment brand. And I think I already talked about this, right? Because if you're trying to tell your customers one thing, but your employees feel a whole other thing, and they are not reflecting the core values that your company is supposed to have, your customers are going to feel that. And they're going to look at those discrepancies and they're going to say, this is not a company that's functioning in integrity. So what you want to do is make a brand promise, and make it not just to your customers, but make it to your employees, and make this promise that no one else is making. Right? Everybody right now is looking for talent, and they're looking for any warm body. We don't want any warm body. We want someone that wants to be part of our team, that wants to be with us because they love what we're doing. They feel that their own personal mission here on earth, their values and all that, align with our company's mission and vision and their core values. And they feel emotionally engaged in this, right? So you want to create that emotional connection and create a value proposition that's based on a higher purpose, rather than just on specific features like, yeah, you're an engineer with like this many years of experience, and oh, you're a level whatever certified, and that you're going to be making this much money, and whatever. You want to make it about more, because that's what people are looking for. They're looking for meaning. So your brand promise, when it overlaps with the brand experience, right? Are they aligned? Is what you say your culture is what's actually being experienced? And in the middle, where those things overlap, you've got authenticity. And that's what today's job force is looking for. They're sniffing out. They want to see if you're authentic. They want to see if you're walking your talk, or if you're just spouting bull to them, because people don't want to work in a place that isn't creating any value. And the big problem we have today is that people aren't actually creating that value. And what do we have to do? Keep on raising those salaries, pay them more and more and more. And people are not committed, and they're willing to jump ship at any time. But all it takes is, I think this is a time of rebalancing, right? People want to feel this meaning. They want their lives to have purpose, and they want work and life to come together, and they like those blurred lines. They want to bring their whole selves to work. So let's analyze your brand as compared to the competitors, and just see how your company shows up. And this is more of an online thing. Let's do this exercise together. Grab your smartphones, right? And I want you to go to your company page, your homepage, and go through your page. If I go to your company homepage, do I know what your company is all about and what kind of difference that they're making in the community, in the country, in the world? How big is your vision? Am I engaged by it? So look at that on your mobile phone and see, can you give yourself a yes or no? Is it easy to find the company vision? So you can also tell me, like, or tell Ed, he's checking the chat. Did you find your company vision? Can you find out what your company's about just by looking at the homepage? Now, remember, we're talking about, are you authentic? Is your company making a brand promise and actually delivering on it and creating an experience that's in alignment? If you go to the careers page on your company site, is there alignment between the language and the homepage? I know that number 2 says job postings. We'll go there next. But on the careers page, is there the same sort of look and feel? Is the vision there? Is that reason for being of the company coming across on the careers page? Or is it just, we have openings, there's jobs here, like come work here instead of at ABC Co, because we offer competitive salaries? Or is that bigger reason, the higher purpose, is that coming across? Because that's really critical. And then the second bullet there uses the same language as the job posting. If you click on one of your job postings on that career page, inside that job posting, are we getting that sense of there's just requirements here? Or is there, can you see yourself in our company as part of our vision because your vision is aligned? It's kind of, we want to engage people in a mission together to make a change on this, in this community, on this planet, in this country, right? So we're looking for that consistency again. Just like I said way back at the beginning of the presentation, are you consistent through all the different places you post? So now what I'd like you to do is open up the LinkedIn app on your phone. And once you're in LinkedIn, find your company's LinkedIn page, the company page.
First off, how many of you have a LinkedIn company page to even go to? Is there anyone who doesn't have that? That's a big question.
Because that's where people are looking for stuff about the company, because people are researching, right? If you show up on Indeed as a job posting, where do you think that they're going to go to find out about the company? Well, you know, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, they want to check you out and see what they want to look inside and see what's going on in your company. And through this experience, right, as I walk you through, and maybe you're the next level person and you're actually, you got Zoom going on here and you're checking all these things. Well, congratulations to you. You're like operating like the millennials and Generation Z here, because yeah, multitasking on your mobile device and running Zoom and everything, good for you. So does your website work well on the mobile phone? We covered that already. Now, what I want you to do, now that we've walked through all those steps, is this is homework, but look in your industry for other companies that would be looking to hire the same talent. Who is after that same person with the same skill sets? And in your industry, you could be looking, but also outside your industry, who needs those same people with those same skill sets? And I think Ed can speak to that better than me, but you when you're looking for talent from diverse backgrounds, you may not just need to be looking in your own industry to pilfer them from somebody else. Like, there's other industries where people have skill sets that align with the talent that you need and that you're looking for in your company. So I want you to think of the top 2 competitors that you have out there who could be after the same candidates, and then go to their site. Look at how big their vision is. Is it more inspiring than yours? Go to their job postings. Do they say more about how that person's going to fit in with their wants and desires into their culture than you do? When you look at their LinkedIn, what is it in alignment? So I want you to rate yourself against your competitors and see what are they doing well, maybe what are you doing better than them, but we can always up level our game. And by checking out your competitors, you can learn a lot. So this is homework, right? So now that we've looked through these things and we've navigated through on our smartphones, and I've shown you how to look for these, check it out on your competitors and see how you rate against them, and look at what you want to improve upon. It's not switching here. Did I pause?
Old school way.
How do you do that?
Just an arrow. Yep.
Down? Or did it freeze?
Is it frozen?
I don't know. Is it PowerPoint's frozen?
Our first technology problem of the day.
Pause the screen share.
See what's going on here. I'm going to pause the screen share for a moment and see why PowerPoint is not cooperating.
There we go.
There it goes. Okay.
Right.
So we'll go back to sharing the screen again for you. For whatever reason, PowerPoint froze on us. And now we're back.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you a company that's doing a great job. How are we doing time-wise, Ed? Good. Any comments on?
So yeah, I would like to. So Rita did say that she found their company mission was and vision was out there, making life better for the communities that we serve. Was there any ahas in going through that little exercise of either not seeing continuity across all channels of the information, or if anyone went out to a competitor and went, oh man, they're doing it a lot better than we are? Go ahead and throw any thoughts there in the chat.
And while you're thinking about that, let's just look at when you link your marketing and your employment brand together, and they become one and the same, right? A company that is just on the forefront of being an excellent brand and doing this really well is Patagonia. And it's a name that most people know, especially if you're outdoorsy and you climb or you ski or you do anything kind of extreme. Well, you'll know this name, right? But people also know what it stands for. And the line between their marketing brand, like the people that they want to buy their stuff, and between the people that work for them, there is really no line, because they just market their brand in both directions. And that's really what your employment brand is. It's your marketing to your employees. You have to sell them as much as you need to sell the customers out there. So Patagonia, most reputable brand in America, they're passionate about sustainability. They beat out 99% of other prominent US businesses in consumer rankings for company ethics, citizenship, and culture. It's so amazing what this company is based on. And what do? Well, they're really proactive about nurturing sustainability on all levels. Like in their company, like they're in the clothing industry. Fashion industry is notorious. Like they're one of the worst polluters of the environment. They're in the top 10% of companies that are responsible for global warming. Yet Patagonia is actually reducing their emissions everywhere. And the reason that they actually do have a footprint in a lot of cases is because of the supply chain necessary to get their materials. But they're really socially responsible, and they attract people that have that concern for the environment, and that they're really see protecting the planet as part of their lifestyle. So let's take a look through the different tick boxes from that chart, this chart here. Like, how does Patagonia do? So let's have a look. So we go to their homepage, and right now we know that they're all about making a difference, because they're all about advocacy, activism and stuff. And so you see, I mean, they've got timely sort of messages up, and they're talking about democracy works when you do. They're engaging people in their vision and their mission, not just saying, here, buy something, right? They invite you to be part of their vision and mission. That's the first thing. And then as you scroll through and you go to the careers page, what do they say? Well, okay, look at those mountains. You know, it's environment, right? Careers, we're looking for highly motivated, unconventional thinkers to join our mission. If you love big challenges, taking action, and want to help preserve the wild places where we play, see our open jobs, right? Who's that speaking to? People that want to be in the mountains, people that love the outdoors and don't want to see corporations destroy the environment. And then once you click through, it says, we're in the business to save our home planet and we're hiring. And then they talk about the company, but they're already speaking to a certain kind of person, and they tell you how they want to hear about things. If you look at the bottom, the last sentence in the first paragraph, we want to hear about your adventures, passions, and how your values align with our mission. So they're saying, please tell us more about you and what you're passionate about, because we want people that are passionate about the same things. And you'll see it. You can click through all their videos and stories about people that are doing amazing things in the outdoors, because that's what Patagonia is all about, and people know that. And then if you keep on going, they're like, you know what? Let's see if we have something for you. And there's so many ways you can search. You can look at, where do you want to be? What country do you want to be in the first place? You know, what state, what city? You can search by departments, like what skill sets do you have? Are you looking for management? Do you want to work in retail? Do you want to work in marketing? Do you want to be part of design? And then you can even click more. I don't even know what's there, but it'll list all the jobs that could cater to your experience. So they're making the experience of finding a job with them easier to navigate. And then if you go to their LinkedIn page, there's a person climbing a sheer rock face. Am I on the right company page? I guess so, right? And then you scroll down a little bit, and then they've got more activism and things that are all about environment. And then you can find their job postings are listed below there. So Patagonia is doing this the right way. So if you need an example to follow, check them out. Like, what are your values you want to show that are coming across? And back to what Pam was talking about, you know, why is only PR doing this? Could PR provide some guidelines to the team, to the workforce, on how to share things? Or even, you know, I don't know, maybe before they start sharing openly, get some approval, maybe train people in how to share things so that it supports the company. Because who doesn't want their friends coming to work with them, right? Why, if it's a nice place to be, the more the merrier. Let's get our friends in here. So the impact of doing this, the impact on business. Well, US online adults who believe a company is trustworthy are 3 times more likely to forgive the brand for product or service related mistakes. So, you know, you get the wrong thing comes in the box, or there's a little bit of a customer service snafu. But if they think the company is trustworthy, they're 3 times more likely to forgive those mistakes. So having that alignment and having your team really aligned with the values and that authenticity just coming through, people are forgiving. Why did it freeze again? All right, let's see what we can do here.
You just try clicking on that slide and see what happens, and then go to your.
Oh, there we go. Okay. And then 43% of US online adults would favor a company that takes a stand on social, environmental, or political values they believe in. Yeah, if you believe in something, don't hide it, share it. You want people that are aligned with you to come into your vision. You don't want to be too broad or airy-fairy about things, because if you don't believe in anything, then nobody's going to have anything to support you on. But if you like draw that line in the sand and say, yes, this is what we stand for, the people that stand for that too, they're coming on board. And then finally, 68% of customers went to a competitor after a single negative experience with a brand. So that really speaks to the first point, that if you went and you created this authenticity and you got all your team on board with it, you're going to not fall into that 68% where you're losing customers because just one negative experience, because there's values and there is a cause for people to believe in, and there's a reason for them to be your customers, as well as there's a reason for them to be your employees. So they're not just jumping ship because another company is like, hey, you know what? We're paying you this much. They're paying you this much. We'll pay you this much, right? Because people know they have to trade money for something. And that's the problem right now, is that that's the only thing that people are trying to trade, is like higher salary, higher, we'll pay you more, or we'll pay you more for this. And there's nothing behind it. Yeah, jump on it.
Yeah, so I want to hop in here real quick on something, and that's that I had a HR director of a not-for-profit that's a longtime client of mine call me a couple weeks back, and was just really brokenhearted. They're losing their frontline employees, which are folks that they call it's like a case management type thing, but basically someone with a disability comes in, and this person assesses their disability, assesses the abilities that they have, what maybe home modifications or modifications in the workplace they might need, and gets them the resources, okay? Critical asset for them is this group of workers. However, there's also someone in their market in the for-profit space looking for the exact same types of people. They're paying them $5,000 more a year. So they're losing some of these case management folks. And she says, Ed, what are we supposed to do? I can't raise everyone's salary by $5,000. We just can't do that. And I said, well, what's happening when they leave? And she said, Ed, every single one of these people, they're almost teary-eyed when they're leaving, and they're saying, we love it here. We can't pass up the $5,000. And I said, okay, so there may not be anything right now that you can do to keep that exodus from happening. But if you believe you've got the culture, and these people are sad about leaving the culture, then that tells me they're only leaving for the money. That also tells me that they may not be willing or ready to accept what's going to come back around, which is the expectation for what they're going to have to do to earn that extra $5,000 a year, because it's not going to be the same environment. Guess what? We're seeing some folks slowly coming back and saying, you know what? It wasn't worth the money. So it's one of those things. I know cash is king right now, and people are leaving for 25 cents on the dollar. But if you can drive that culture, you can overcome that comp thing that we're all mired down in right now.
Thanks, Ed. And I think, yes, it is a time where there's a rebalancing happening, right? The job force has really, they hold all the cards now. It's never been like this before, but it is a good thing, right? We were always like, oh my God, what are these millennials thinking? They just are so entitled. Well, don't we want to be like them, right? Don't we just want work-life balance too? Want to be able to structure our lives around work? It's true. They just asked for it, and then they stood behind it because it's value driven, and that's where the workforce is now, and we have to meet them. So what we're talking about today is just the shift in how we have to perceive recruiting. And when you meet them on the level that they're playing at, this is what will happen. So candidate expectations, they'll look up to you. They will look you up, and you want them to look up to you. So you have to show yourself in a good light. And so companies now have a chance to showcase their employment brand through social platforms. You have to be using social platforms. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you like them or not. Your candidates are out there on them. You need to go where the candidates are. And then by providing candidates with exceptional digital experiences in real time, such as streaming live video, stories, images, what we were talking about, get the people on your team sharing their experiences at work. Shoot those videos, take the pictures, and talk to PR and find out how can we get the team more involved in this, because it's where it's where the candidates are, and it's where your company's employment brand needs to be. And I think that's it for me. Oh no, they want real-time updates. Yeah, people don't want to just see what happened. They don't want to know what did you do last month. They want to see it as it's happening. So let people have a look into your company real time. So post these videos and footage at events. If you have a social, show what's happening there. If there's a really cool project happening, if you have a really cool project that's happening right now, have people show it. And I'm going to keep going here. They want a better digital experience. Your goal here should be to just take all the things that are happening in your company and turn them into digital experiences for everyone. Because at this point now, your competitors probably aren't doing it. And if you start doing it, you're going to actually become the place of choice to work. You're going to become a top talent magnet. And let me just show you how this all works, how it all fits together. So the candidate journey, that's all about what happens when a job candidate comes from, say, Indeed or a job site, and it comes to your website and is checking you out, and then goes all the way through that journey from I need a job, you have an opening, to we're hired at your company. Now, this looks a lot like the customer journey, because it's almost the same thing, because you're selling a job to a candidate versus selling a product to a customer. So the recruitment funnel has 3 stages. The first stage is consideration or a generation. Can you get clients, or can you get candidates to actually sort of come out of the woodwork and say, yeah, you know what, I could work here. And then the second stage is nurturing. Like once they raise their hand and they say, you know what, I could be looking for a position of that nature, I could take that role. Like, what do you do to like keep them engaged and nurture them along to actually doing the application process, coming to an interview? And then the third phase is onboarding. How do you actually get them into your company and part of your team? So this is the funnel. And oops. And then here's a little bit more elaborate viewpoint, and it just sort of encompasses all the things that we've been talking about, but it's showing them in the context of this funnel. And again, everything's showing up all at once here, but let's look at awareness. Like, what are you doing to create awareness about the jobs you have out there? And I know, yeah, I stuck it on Indeed, or it's it's on LinkedIn. It says it on our company site that we are hiring and these positions are open. Yes, that's part of awareness. But are you doing anything to market these and actually create enthusiasm and interest about it? Like, maybe you should have stories done about your company and talking about all the great things that you're doing. And then it says, hey, do you want to work here? We do have openings. Just like Patagonia says, hey, look at all these openings for people that are interested in saving the planet with us, because it's such a big mission. So talk about it, talk about your events, and do advertising, blog about it, go to trade shows and talk about it, have webinars about what it's like to work at our company, viral campaigns, social media campaigns. Maybe you want to have a Facebook page about getting a job at this company, and have your existing employees commenting on how to work there. I've got a client who decided that early on, he decided he wanted to work at a company and in New York City, and he needed a way in. So he just personal messaged every single person that worked at that company and talked to them until somebody like had a connection and got him in, right? You want that sort of engagement, and not all the people are that proactive. So if you have a place where people can have interactions with your employees, it could actually help to select and find really good people, or maybe find connections like from schools, trade unions and places where you could find really good candidates because of the connections with your employees. And then as you move down the funnel to interest and consideration, like how are you engaging people on social media and maintaining relationships with them? Are there emails that are going out, targeted content and newsletters that you're sending to people? If people sign up for receiving information on your job postings and your culture, and they want to see what's going on inside of your company, how are you keeping that relationship alive and maintaining that consideration so they get to the point of applying now? And is it effortless? Because you can't just mail people a package or have people go through the 52 different click-throughs, just as Harold was saying. Like, that's insane that you'd have to click that many times to apply. Make it easy. So check out the experience there. And then interviews. Like, do you have a process for going from the application to the interview and to the hire in a timely manner? Have you planned it out? And I'm sure Ed will speak to that, that how you have to have that laid out in your calendar from the time you post it to how you're handling this process of all the interviews you're going to have to do. And then how are you measuring these people against the culture and making sure they're a fit, providing the experience and the expectations that candidate may have, and showing how your company can match those things. And then what kind of follow-up is there? Because everything is about follow-up, right? You might have a good interaction now, but again, they're checking all these other places out, and somebody else may have come back to them and said, hey, do you want to work here? Did you like what we had to say? This client that I was talking to, they would go through all of the stages in this funnel, but then whenever they got to making that offer, people were turning down their offers for high-level management and leadership positions. And it wasn't until they started to actually have a presentation, like a PowerPoint presentation, selling the company, selling the vision, showing the cool things that they were doing, talking about, hey, what would it be like to relocate to this part of the country and what's so great about here, that people started accepting their leadership positions because they could start seeing themselves in that company and making a difference, right? And so that's where you get to onboarding, and that's where the recruitment journey is complete. So there's a lot of steps, a lot of moving parts, but what you see is not one single step is actually that complicated. Your employees are already doing these sort of things. They're already taking these videos and sharing. They want to share it. They just need a way to get it out so it supports your recruitment process. Over to you, Ed.
Okay. So, wow, we're in the home stretch here. That recruiting funnel, as I mentioned in the chat, each one of those little steps, and I'll go back to it here for a second. Each one of those steps we can and should be measuring. We talked earlier about those business objectives, and are we measuring the right things? These are all things we can measure. We've talked about, you see the third bullet point down. What is the engagement like on your social media and other relationships that you're building with potential candidates? Your IT function can get that working in the backside of your website so you can get the analytics. How many people are looking at your job ads? Maybe it's 500 people and you're only getting 5 to fill up the job ad, okay? Or fill up the application. There's a monster disconnect. We shouldn't have 500 people looking and only have 1% of them actually taking the steps to fill out. Something is of a disconnect. So if without data, it's really hard to make decisions. And so I believe that we need to develop the analytics for each step in this funnel and figure out, okay, for every hire, if we work backwards, for every hire that we make, how much awareness and interest do we have to get driving? And again, your marketing team fully understands funnels, especially from a sales perspective. How many prospects does it take to get to proposal, to get to actually delivering? They know how all that works to get the customer out the bottom of the funnel. As recruiting professionals, as HR strategists, we have to think the same way. What do we have to do at each step here to get the talent that we want? It's absolutely critical. And so much of it has to do about our presence out in the metaverse, right? And our presence in cyberspace. What are we looking like out there? You know, Pam mentioned earlier about the confidentiality of some of their processes. Okay, so we all have some of those types of things, but also knowing what Pam's company does, they're doing some really cool stuff. So how can we honor their confidentiality concerns about how they make the widget that they make, right? Without giving away a trade secret, and yet show people what it would be like to work at her organization, which is a really cool family-run enterprise. And knowing the owner of her organization, he's very committed to making the community a better place. And yet you don't see a whole lot about that. Although a number of years ago, when they built a new facility, they put a green roof on it, and he got a lot of press out of that. Those are the kinds of things that we want to be sharing with people. And we saw, I mean, I get you're not all Patagonia, right? But you can follow that blueprint regardless of the size that you are. There's a blueprint there. We gave it to you. You can make that happen in your marketplace. So again, I'm going to back out of the screen share for one moment because I want to flip over to a really cool slide that I didn't think about sharing earlier, but I definitely want to share this. And I want to bring it up for you here. I just got to see it. There it is. I just want to unhide this thing. And then we're going to go back to our screen share here for you. And the reason I want to talk about this is because it occurred to me that, you know, when we think about the process that we've talked about all morning as we're winding things down here in our last few minutes together, we've talked about creating that experience for people. And we went through, coming out of the break, we went through that exercise of looking at what the retention and motivation drivers are for people. I want you to take a look. This is the World at Work total rewards model. And I want you to take a look on the left-hand side of the screen at all the things that influence our HR strategy. And specifically, take a look at the bottom half of it. Look at the social norms. That's what we've really been talking about today, if you think about it. How the social norms today are changing. What people want out of their work experience is changing. How people want to be courted for work is changing. I've written a couple articles that I believe the whole candidate recruitment experience is not unlike dating. So, you know, if you're in the dating market and you're on, you know, a social media, some sort of dating website, and you're flipping through looking for, you know, a person who meets the criteria you're looking for in a partner. And you see that person, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to ping them and I'm going to say, hey, you know, let's meet up or whatever. You're going to talk on the phone or whatever you're going to do, right? It's that just initial, hey, let's see what's going on here. And then maybe you finally decide, hey, let's go on an actual date. Maybe it's just coffee to start. And then coffee goes well. And then it's dinner. And that's, you know, things progress. And then you progress into the relationship. And then the first parts of the relationship are, oh, well, I'm going to introduce you to my friends. And then we're going to meet your friends. And then eventually we're going to meet family. We're going to meet parents, right? There's a progression to the relationship. And our recruitment relationship is very, very similar to that, if you think about it. Because we're putting some stuff out on social media. People are checking us out, trying to say, hey, do I want to, you know, hang out with this person, this company? And then they start the dabbling. They check us out online. They check us out with what's going on. Then they say, yeah, maybe I want to have that coffee with HR and get to know it a little bit more. Oh yeah, I want to do some interviewing with them. Maybe I want the plant tour. Maybe I want this before I make the commitment to this relationship. So you can think about it in much the same way. That's how society has changed with how they're actually looking for work and for that experience. And the labor market we know is tight. So the people that we're looking to court are probably already working. So that's why it's so critical. In fact, in many times, they may not even be actively looking, but they're scrolling through their LinkedIn feed and they see this video of someone doing the kind of work that they do. All of a sudden, it's like squirrel. They may stop and look at that and say, hey, wait a minute, that person's having fun. I don't have that much fun at work. What's going on at that company? That's what we're talking about when we're talking about throwing bait in the water. What I'm seeing too often is companies are throwing a hook in the water and there's no bait on it. Paul mentioned it earlier, how the job post is all about the company. There's no what's in it for me. That's the bait. What's in it for me? Now, you might be catching some fish using that method, right? But do you really want them? Do you really want a fish that wasn't smart enough to avoid a hook that didn't have a worm on it? I mean, that's kind of crazy. But when we put the right bait and we're in the right lake and we catch the right fish, it's that match made in heaven. And to get to that point, we need a strategy for all of the things that are informing our HR strategy that then lead us to this total reward strategy. And everything on those retention and motivation drivers that we talked about earlier can really be put into each of these 5 buckets here. This is what people want. They want the right mix of this. And when we get it right, look what comes out the other side. The people are getting the workforce experience that they want, and our organization is achieving the performance it needs. So it really becomes, if you want to think about this selfishly, where a lot of organizations get mired down in what we've talked about today is they think our message is all about give the employees what they want, make their lives better, do all this for the employees. What about the company? Yeah, it is what about the company. I think that one of the biggest problems that we have in HR today is when we spend money on our people, we don't look at it as an investment in our people. If operations wants to buy that new piece of equipment and they go to the management team and say, we want this $1 million piece of equipment, they're going to say why we need it, what it's going to do for the processes, and most importantly, what the return on the investment is going to be. How many more widgets do we have to sell to help fund this thing, right? And what's the turnaround on that? The HR function has to do the exact same thing with this total reward strategy. We only have a finite budget to play with. So we've got to look at that budget and say, okay, where do we need to be spending money right now? And when I look at these 5 things, development of our people's is on there, right? And we know that the younger generations demand learning and development opportunities. What worries me, all the experts say we're heading into a recession. What's the first thing, and throw this in the chat, what's the first thing that is people related that gets cut when a company's revenues go down? I've already given you the hint, but throw it in the chat box for me. First thing that gets cut in your company when revenues are a problem.
Positions, says A. Miller.
Positions get cut. Okay.
Overtime.
Overtime gets cut. Okay. What happens after those things? I mean, you're already short people right now. So if we get into I'll call it a true recession, we may just eliminate some positions and not people. If you're already working overtime and you can't keep up, that may not be an option.
Benefits, training, and certification approval, says Sharon.
Sharon, you hit the nail on the head. I don't know much about, the benefits getting cut, but what I see, the number one thing that gets cut is training and development. And it drives me bonkers. At a time when we're going to cut positions and we're going to cut overtime and demand more of our people, why would we cut the one thing that helps them to be the most productive for us when we need them to be the most productive? It's counterintuitive. And so again, Most times it's finance coming back to us in the HR function saying, hey, you got to cut this, cut. Okay. We need to be able to go back and say, hey, we have to keep the development budget. Maybe it has to be reduced a little bit. I get it, but we've got to keep it in there. And here's the return that we're expecting on that investment from our people. So we need, from an HR strategy standpoint, to think differently. That's what the whole message really comes down to that we've talked about today. How do we think differently? And that's why I wanted to pull this slide up, because it helps to further qualify us in what is it exactly that we're doing in each of these areas. What are our people asking for? So this could be another piece of homework. In addition to those retention and benefit drivers, what if you asked your people, how important are these 5 things? And what do you want out of these 5 things? What do you want in your benefit program? Because maybe it's okay that we have to cut some benefits. Maybe there's stuff our employees don't even want. So we can trim and save some money and move it somewhere else. Just something for you to think about. So let's talk for a minute about this human capital kind of chain here, right? One thing that we know is that engaged employees stay longer. The more that we can drive an experience, our retention goes up and commitment goes up. Now, what's so important about that? It's pretty obvious, right? If our people stay longer, they're happier and they're more committed to what we're doing, guess what happens next? The customers get satisfied because the employees are committed to doing what they need to do to make the customer happy. I recently had a situation where I was traveling to go speak at a conference, and my bag was, I made the mistake of not taking the carry-on. Why, I don't know, but that time I didn't. And the airline never even put my bag on the plane. It wasn't that it was lost, it was still sitting in Baltimore. I'm in St. Louis. I landed about 5:30. I'm on stage on camera at 8 a.m. And the airline tells me, yeah, you're probably not getting your bag till midnight at least, but it may not be till the next morning. Well, I've got a problem, right? I'm in kind of a t-shirt and shorts that I traveled with. I got no business clothes. And I said to the airline, here's my situation. They said, go shopping. I said, okay, and send us the bill. So I went to the local mall and they had a Nordstrom. I had never had the Nordstrom experience, but I go in there and I felt like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. I find the guy working in the men's department, like, dude, I need an outfit. He goes, well, what do you look for? I said, like, everything. Like, I need shoes, I need socks, I need a belt, shirt, pants, I need it all, right? And it's a half hour before they're closing. That guy, dropped what he was doing, got me the clothes I needed, called up to keep the seamstress there so that she could hem the pants. The whole bit. And then while they were doing it, it's like, sir, you don't want to buy like the underwear and toiletries here, too expensive. Go down to this store in the mall. They'll take care of you. They'll have what you need there. Come back. We'll make sure everything fits and you'll be out of here. Wow, what a customer experience. Now, Nordstrom is known for that, right? Why? Because they've got committed employees that are there to serve the customer, and it's about the customer for them. So if we can retain good employees, they're going to drive customer satisfaction. And we know if we've got satisfied customers, they're loyal to us, right? They start telling people, gotta go do business. Like I said, I had never had the Nordstrom experience. I had heard about it. Now I'm like, gosh, I wish I had a Nordstrom near me. I'd be in there all the time, right? My wallet probably wouldn't like that, but what a great experience. And so if we have the satisfied, loyal customers, what does that do? Profitability, right? And as we get more profitable, if we're smart with it, now we can grow, we can reinvest in our people and drive more shareholder value. Even if you're not a publicly traded company, then the shareholders are your people, perhaps. And if you have, I've got the privilege of working for some great family-run enterprises that really share the wealth with their employees. As the company does good, and it's not just like traditional profit share, they really drive value for their people. When that company thrives, their people thrive. They're able to do more for their people, not just in terms of bonuses and cash payouts, but the things they're able to do to reinvest in their people. I mean, this value chain is why we need to do the things we've talked about today, because it's a business imperative. If we can fix our recruiting problems, identify the critical shortages, skill shortages that we have, and engage the recruiting and marketing methods that Paul has talked about, this value chain starts, again, the snowball downhill. We get more shareholder value. We're able to engage our people better, offer them even more experiences, and the wheel just keeps turning and turning and turning. And yes, even in this tight labor market, there are companies that are thriving, that are still having their pick of talent because they're doing things the right way and they're implementing the things that we've talked about today. So we're down to about the last couple of minutes here, and it's been a journey, right? It's a long day to sit and be in front of a computer, and we're hoping that not only was this really, really productive, but that your brains are firing on all cylinders in terms of what can be done. And so when you think about it, we started off talking about what's different about today's talent. And to kind of recap that, it's their expectations have changed. How they want to be courted, how they're finding work has changed. And so we've got to meet them where they are. If we want to get out of the information age and into the experience age, then it's about driving the experience for our candidates that they want, and then driving the experience they want when they become employees. That is a huge switch from just a few years ago. And what I want to caution you is, I don't believe it's going away anytime soon. This talent shortage, the numbers play out that it's going to be 10 to 15 years. Harold talked about it in his comments. It's going to take a long time to generate this. The millennials aren't having the number of kids that the boomers and the Xers had. And so it's causing the strain for us. And it's making talent be much more picky. It's not going to change. Okay, so we have to change, meet the talent where they're at. We've talked about the changes that HR needs to make to support the company. And I believe, not just in the things that we've talked about, but in the way that we talk to management, how we get the funds and the monies and the budget to do the things that we want to do, how we measure the most important things to us to ensure that we are meeting company ownership and company executives where they are. And this is where I'll get off my soapbox about HR needs a seat at the table. We all know this, right? But that's how you get it. By bringing these kinds of challenges to the table and saying, this is where we need to move. Here's the business imperative. And more importantly, here's the plan to make it happen. That's how we need to change as an HR function. We can no longer sit there, put the hook in the water, wait for the fish to either grab the hook, or better yet, wait for the fish to just jump in the boat. Ain't gonna happen. So I hear from HR people that they're so frustrated with being ghosted by candidates, and yet these same HR people 5 years ago were doing the ghosting. So it is about a relationship build from the very start, and building a relationship with people that they may not even know want to be in a relationship. That's what it's all about with the recruiting piece and the candidate experience piece that Paul talked about. And we spent a lot of time talking about what you have to do to build your employment brand. Go back to the slide that has the 8 gold balls on it. Go to that slide with the world at work model. Those 2 slides are absolute gold in looking at your processes and what's really important to driving the building out of your employment brand, one that's going to drive your marketing brand, one that's going to drive the experiences that your people want, one that's going to draw in the talent that you desperately need, not only today, but remember the talent we might need 5 years from now, the skill sets we might need 5 years from now. Those are the key things that we've got to think about with that employment brand. And as Paul mentioned, culture's an amoeba, it changes. Look at how quickly some major brands have fallen because of some crazy thing that happened in their marketing perspective. Your employment brand is fragile. If we don't focus on it, it will change, and maybe in a way we don't want it to change. So that's why when we talked about culture transformation and we looked at key business indices, I believe your employment brand is a key business industry index that we have to stay focused on in order to ensure that it's where we want it and it can support our marketing brand. So if you want to take it a little bit further, we've done a major data dump with you today and a major kind of mind dump for you. If you want to take it further with us, we're willing to offer only the attendees that have been with us in here today a free job post attraction assessment. So we gave you the tools to do it, but Paul and I are willing to hop on a call with you and walk through an example, or not an example, a real life situation you're faced with one of your job postings that maybe isn't performing the way you want it to. We're happy to do that free of charge as a courtesy to those of you who have spent your time with us today, because 4 hours of time is worth gold. And we'd love to help you out with a real life scenario as a way to thank you for giving us of your time. So I'm going to give you a slide here. Either you can throw your number in the chat if you want to take advantage of that, or you can shoot me an email, or that's my cell phone number. You can throw me a text and we'll get you on the calendar at a time that's convenient for you. And we're happy to spend that time to walk through and help you to implement some level of assessment on a job focus for you. So we've got about 5 minutes left. What I'd like to do is open the chat up for questions, or maybe there's challenges or things that as you've been thinking about what we've talked about today, maybe there's something you want to flesh out here while we have a couple of minutes. And then I want to give Harold the opportunity to pop in and give his thanks as well. So let me pause for a minute, throw any questions, or if you'd like to unmute at this point, please feel free to unmute and fire away a question that you think you'd like to have an answer to. And even if everything, if you don't have any questions, or maybe you're just kind of overwhelmed, I'd like you to throw in the chat while you're thinking, what was your biggest takeaway from today? So either a question that you have or your biggest takeaway.
We got Steve saying buddy up marketing and figure out our target market.
Oh, nice. So Steve says to buddy up with marketing and then figure out your target market. That is so insightful, Steve. If we don't know what fish we're going after, we don't know what bait to put on the hook. And when you think about how you're recruiting and the types of skill sets you need, what you might find is that you have to put different bait on the hook for different positions. And when I talk about that, I'm not just talking about the pay and benefits. I'm talking about how we position those position postings, and where we post them is absolutely critical. I mean, if you want to go fishing for tuna and you go to the local lake, you've got a problem, right? The tuna are not in the lake, they're out in the ocean. So that's great insight, Steve, is how do we market and go find the talent that we want? Where is the talent that we're fishing for? Great insight. Other big takeaways.
Steve says thumbs up.
Okay, I'd like to, Harold, would you like to make some closing remarks?
We just got Gina says,
Gina's got something.
Consistent presence in social media, comparing recruiting with relationships.
Okay, so Gina says that her biggest takeaway is the social media presence and comparing recruiting to relationships. Yeah.
Online dating.
It's an online dating. There you go. It really is a bit of a dating relationship when you think about it. They're assessing you to see if they want to hang out with you. You're assessing them to see if you want to hang out with them. I mean, it really is the dating process. But yeah, the social media presence, critical, critical, critical. It is amazing. We have anything else in there?
Absolutely. Not yet.
Okay.
Maybe we'll get Harold up, and if
Okay.
anything else pops up.
All right. Harold, would you like to make any closing comments before we wrap up?
Might not be.
Okay. So I want to thank you again for your opportunity, or for the opportunity to chat with you this morning. I want to thank you especially for the interaction in the chat room. It makes it a lot easier for us as presenters to not only stay engaged with you, but to make our comments tailored to what you're dealing with, which is always, I think, the most important thing as we walk away from these types of learning opportunities. So again, please, we encourage you to take advantage of that no obligation hour of time with me and Paul. We're happy to walk you through a scenario to get you on the right path to doing these things. And we're also open to chatting. If there's things in here you heard and you said, oh my gosh, we need help with this stuff. That's what we're here for. I mean, that's what we live for, is to work with clients who need to make the transformation and kind of light things on fire. So with that, we're going to close out again. Thank you all for your participation. It was great to meet all of you virtually, and we look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. I'll let Paul say his goodbyes as well.
Thanks, everyone. Pleasure to be here with you.
All right. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.